So, well, thank you, Norman, for wishing to talk to me about your career in the Bond films. It's very much appreciated.
No problem.
I wanted to kick off with talking about From Russia with Love. And first of all, I wanted to know what was the atmosphere like going into the second Bond film? Because, of course, the first Dr. No was this unknown film, small film. There must have been quite a buzz by the time this one came about.
Well, it was. I mean, the biggest worry for me was the budget. I mean, I never got over the fact that in many ways, the whole experience of Dr. No was spoilt for me, in as much as I was trying to be professional, but people were ringing me up and saying, you're costing us a fortune, which I thought was rather unfair. So my first thought on Russia with Love was when we reached the scene with Gypsy Camp, and I thought, well, it's all shot on the back lot. It has got no Turkish feeling or atmosphere whatsoever. And I'd learnt from Winston Ryder, who I worked with on 3 major films, that you could bring any scene to life with voices. He was a great passion for voices, so I knew that I would need voices. And so I went into the production office with tongue firmly in my cheek. And they said, what do you want, Norman? And I said, well, I shall need 10 Turkish men, 10 Turkish women, and as many Russians as you can find. And he looked at the calendar and he said, will Thursday be all right? I couldn't believe it. I went away thinking, now, Norman, we're making movies. And I really appreciated it. And I've never forgotten Terence Young, when we were mixing the tracks together, the dubbing session as we call it, and he said, but where have all these voices come from? Peter Hunt said, well, Norman recorded them. I felt very happy about that, because suddenly you had a gypsy camp in Turkey. Yeah.
Because the budget, of course, was $2 million compared to Dr. No's 1, so you were able to well, rather than say perhaps just try and make a movie that with Dr. No, perhaps just try and increase its scale a little bit, you could actually just sit down and just make the best movie you could.
Yes, without having that problem. It's very distracting for me, that was.
And so Dr. No had much more of a fantasy element with the toppling of rockets, American missiles, nuclear reactors.
Yes, you're right there.
Whereas Russia with Love was much more straightforward spy espionage thriller.
Yes, it was.
Did that sort of influence how you approached it from a sound point of view?
Not really. I think the difference between Russia with Love and Dr. No was just as you said. It had far more realism. It wasn't going into fantasy land, and that's the reason it was my favourite Bond film, and also Cubby Broccoli's. No, I would say, generally speaking, I just approached that in the normal way. The one little disappointment was that the boats they used, I've forgotten the name of them now, but Fairy Marine, I think they were called, and John Mitchell, who was such a dedicated sound man, always had me in his thoughts and thinking, what can I do for Norm? And he was so dedicated to the cause that he asked if he could become a member of the boats, almost like one of the crew. And people would think that he was just another man in a cap, but in fact he was sitting there with a recorder on his lap. And when he came back from the shooting, and he had these, I've never seen so many tapes, and he invited me to sit with him on the weekend and listen to all this wonderful sounds that he had recorded. And I didn't say anything, but I realised straight away that because the boats were so refined, they sounded more like vacuum cleaners. On Bond films you have roars. And I didn't say anything at the time, but I thought after all that dedication and becoming a member of the crew, I couldn't really use 99% of it. It was a great shame. But otherwise, everything was fairly normal. The train tracks, and what was very helpful, I've always remembered on the train tracks, was that when we were in the train, and then sometimes you were in the corridor, there obviously had to be a change of sound. When you go into a corridor, it sounds different. It's far more rattly and realistic. And what Gordon McCullen, the mixer, he, instead of me having to keep laying a track for each, all he did, he said, don't bother, Norm, if you just cue when we go outside and when we come inside, I will just change the bias of the track, because that's what they have, those amazing desks. And he did it for me. So one moment it was boom, 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 then it was ding, 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 ding. And I thought that was very interesting from the point of view of technicality, and it saved me a lot of work. I loved Rush with Love. I really enjoyed it.
I think it's most Bond fans' favourite film. It always seems to top. You'd think maybe the biggest spectacles might be in the favourites, but From Rush with Love always seems to come up on top.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
And I think going back to the train sequence, I think when they're having the fight in the carriage, and then the window smashes, and you get this wonderful the train noises coming.
Train noises were allowed to come through. Yeah, I mean, for sound editors, it's always a slight battle, in as much as you never know quite what the composer will come up with. It's a great shame that because you're working to a time schedule, there isn't the opportunity to sit with the composer like you'd like to, and he would like to, or she would like to, and say, well, look, I'm going to do this there, and he would say, well, I'll tell you what then, in that case, I will compensate it with blah, blah, blah. But it never worked like that, and so often when you came to mixing the tracks together, the music and the sound effects that have taken so much work are not working together at all. It's a great shame. So one of them had to go, and usually the music survived. So for me to have that scene where that was purely on effects gave me a lot of satisfaction. That did. I've never forgotten when we were recording the actual fight, and I was obviously in there with the recordist, and every time he played back what he'd shot, I thought, that is just amazing. It really symbolised what was happening in the action. And whenever I see the film, I'm very proud of that whole sequence, I must be honest.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that the role between composer and sound design is that a good composer, which of course John Barry was one of the best,
yes,
a good composer knows what to keep silent as much as what to write music to. So he was obviously very good in for example, that scene in From Rush with Love.
Yes, he would have known that, yes. What happens is when we're getting near to the film being fair, not exactly fine cut, but getting close to it, it's not just assembly of shots. That's when the composer comes and sits with the editor and the director, and between the three of them they decide where music is required. And so then the composer knows exactly where he stands, and he will go away and start thinking up the type of music for that particular scene. It's only later, when the film is fine cut, that he can actually write it to the second so that it will fit. Yeah.
I think one of the very good, because sometimes sound effects, of course, are very much in your face, as it were. You're meant to focus on, for example, the sound of the train going along. But sometimes it's more subtle, the raw sound. For example, the Spectre Island scenes where it's shot on the Pinewood Studios gardens. You know, the least exotic location you could think of in the heart of Slough, and of course it sounds like an exotic island somewhere in the Caribbean. So it's just sort of about subtly adding the sounds of the tropics. Appropriate, yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And of course, without sort of it distracting from from the dialogue. So just like a composer, you know when you've got to turn it down a little bit, but still being enough in the psyche to register that this is where you are and this is what the, because you're telling a story as much as say a
Yes,
musician,
very much so.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the main thing is to make the scene work, and if after all the work you put into some sound and atmosphere, it has to get lost, you just have to accept the fact that you're making a film here. You know, it's not down to you. I've never ever forgotten the fact that, I think I've told you before, in Dr. No, when Bond was crawling through the tunnel, and I happened to be in the sound effects library listening to various sounds, and I heard this electronic sound going on. I said, "What's all that?" They said, "Oh, don't worry, Norm, he's just listening to some." I said, "Yeah, I know, but I love it, because the moment I heard it, immediately I thought of him crawling through that with that echo and everything." And I took a copy of it. I laid it up for the scene, but told them on the chart that it wasn't to be played. And when I wasn't there at the time, but apparently they played the music and they weren't happy with it, and they said, "Has Norm got anything?" And sure enough, they played my electronic sound, and I've never forgotten the fact that I instinctively knew it was right for that scene, and when they heard it, they knew it was too, and it even had a twang in it, which I was able to synchronise with the point where he drops. Amazing, really.
I believe you did work briefly with Pedro Almodovar's, and
Yes.
of course, it's quite a sad story in that he took his own life before the film came out. What do you remember about Pedro?
Well, only that Terence Young got in touch and said, "Norman, I want to go to London with Pedro, because he needs to go back now. He needs to leave the country, and so we will, any lines of his that we obviously know we're going to have to reproduce, because this happens all the time where actors' voices in certain scenes for some reason aren't adequate for the final film. There might be some atmosphere that's making it more obscure, but anyway, there were lines of his that we judged needed to be reshot and re-recorded, and so we went to London together, and all these lines then came up one after the other, and I look back now and I can't believe the professional way that man behaved. It was just like being at any normal post-synchronizing session that I'd ever been to. And looking back now, I think how totally professional he was, in spite of how he felt, the pain he was in, and yet he gave everything to recording his voice. And the fact that he went back to America and took his own life left me totally bewildered. I couldn't believe the man that I'd worked with, so calm and so professional, could have been so ill. Unbelievable, really. Amazing.
I must admit, I would have been shocked to most people, because I think that they obviously wanted to keep it quiet, being quite a personal thing, and I think most people didn't necessarily know why production was being changed a little bit to accommodate his scenes first, and obviously they kept it quite personal, and for his dignity. And it was a nice.
Yes, I mean, being in the editing department, in other words, we are separate from the set where these scenes are being shot. I don't think Peter Hunt, my editor, was aware just how ill that poor man was. We became aware that they sometimes used a double when you were on his back, and we noticed that there were one or two scenes where there was a limp involved, but we had no idea how serious it was. And the story was apparently that he took the job knowing how ill he was, and that he wanted to put some finance to his family.
Yeah,
amazing story, really.
From what I saw, I think it's on the documentaries on the DVD, is that I think he signed on the film. I think perhaps not knowing exactly how old he was, but probably he did know that things weren't right, and I think it was Cubby Broccoli's doctor saw him because he said to Cubby, I'm not feeling, something's wrong, and so he got this, of course Cubby had the best doctor, as
Yes,
as
yes.
would, and then they realised that it was terminal, and of course you want to leave something behind for your family, and he insisted on finishing the film, and which must have took a great determination and strength to do so.
Absolutely, yes. A remarkable story, really, that someone took a film on with that knowledge. Yeah, it's extraordinary.
And to rework a film schedule, which is so difficult anyway, to get it all done, and to respect the man enough to do that shows greatness on.
It certainly does. I'm not sure whether or not they brought some of his scenes earlier on. I think they did, so that they knew that they would get him at his best before he deteriorated. Yeah, what a strange story.
I mean, certainly the gypsy camp. I don't think they would originally have done it on the Pinewood lot, but because they knew it was quicker to do it that way for him. That's why they sort of changed the location. I think probably that lot was perfect for the scene, because you don't feel, if it had been silent, you wouldn't have known you were abroad, or you wouldn't have known you were at home. It was an area outside where it seemed to work for what it was. And being such a big sequence as well, it provided a controlled space as well. To do it. Apart from Pedro, did you work with any other actors on the film?
No, in my case I was always the sound effects editor as opposed to the dialogue editor. I mean, on some films where they're just very talky and not a lot of action, you only probably need one sound editor that can cope with any dialogue that needs replacing and any sound effect that needs. But on films like the Bonds, where there's so much sound that is not possible to use, that you have to have somebody for each job. And I have worked on films where I was the dialogue editor, and I've quite enjoyed it actually, because you become very close to the actors.
And I don't know if you heard this story, but it was something, again, it's in documentaries. Peter Hunt put a first assembly together of From Russia with Love, and screening it to Cubby Broccoli and a few of the studio executives. But he, when Bond opens the attaché case in M's office, Peter put the end of Dr. No, where the bass blows up, and then put the end and puts the credits up as a joke. Did you?
I don't recall that. No, that sounds great.
Yeah.
No, I'm surprised. I don't know he did that.
I think then he hastily put on the proper film, but I think he just thought it'd be a bit fun to.
Oh right, okay.
To sort of do that. So, was the atmosphere always quite? Was it always fun to be on? I know intense pressure, but were there always lots of jokes and to sort of help with the?
No, I must admit, no. There was nothing humorous about making the Bond films.
No.
Because it's a very serious project. You've got to do the best job possible, and like I said earlier, that time is always not on your side.
I just want to mention some of the. There's not the most gadgets in this film compared to some of the others.
No.
But of course, you do notably have Red Grant's watch, and that has a lovely sort of sound of the chord. Again, a nice exaggerated sound of it coming out, and little things like doors opening or blinds going up and down is very sort of distinctive.
I know what you mean.
Sort
yes,
of
actually, I do have a confession to make about Russia with Love. It was the only time, because normally when they were mixing all the sound together, as we called it, dubbing, that was the final episode on any film. Each day another reel was mixed together. All the soundtracks that the sound editors have been compiling over many, many weeks are all mixed back together. And I was still busy working while they were mixing the reel that you're talking about. And when they pulled the mask off and you realised that it wasn't Bond, it wasn't Sean, apparently they all said that's not really as good as it should be, and apparently they stopped dubbing, brought the gear in, and they re-recorded that, and I could get really upset about it, but I think, well, if only one sound out of 5 films. But it's an interesting fact that when I see the film, it was an excellent sound, and I think to myself, well, what was wrong with mine? But because I can't hear it now, I don't know. But that was very unusual, very, very unusual. But that just shows the standard that sound was looked upon with the Bonds. They had to be right.
I don't, do you have any favourite sounds from Russia with Love that come to mind? Anything you particularly proud of? I've mentioned obviously the speedboats, the helicopter chase in Scotland's very.
Oh yeah.
So whether you'll be able to use the actual helicopter sounds for that, probably not, I'm guessing, but it's most of that would be libraries and things like that.
It was the mono. It was the helicopter, wasn't it?
Yeah. There's a helicopter that's chasing Bond, shot in Scotland, and he keeps having to duck, and he shoots it down with the sniper's rifle.
Yes.
Was
well, that was typical of the way a sound effects editor works. Any scenes like that, because you want each cut to sound exactly the same. You have a session where you go out with a sound crew and the appropriate machine. If the machine could be improved, then you'd get another machine. But usually you took the right car or the right machine, and I would go out with the helicopter and the pilot and the crew, and I would tell them exactly what to do for each cut. And that would have been the case. In that particular case, it was mostly constant, wasn't it? You were on Sean, but there were other shots. But invariably, any kind of car chase or helicopters or motorbikes, they would always be recorded again, always.
Yeah.
Clean, nice and clean, yeah.
One reference in the film that is Call Me Brana. There's a poster of the film, of course.
Yes.
Broccoli and Saltzman produced it.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek. And of course the villain comes out of Anita's mouth. And of course you worked on Call Me Brana as well. I was wondering if there was any, because of the connection, whether there was any highlights of.
Well, obviously there was a touch of humour there, and I don't think many people, of course, would have realised that Call Me Brana was made by Cubby and.
Yeah.
It was a very in-house gag, that, I think. But when I see it now, I do laugh, but I think no one else would know what that was all about.
It does actually pan over Harry Saltzman and Co. Broccoli's name. Actually, if you look closely, you can actually see their names on the poster.
Oh, yes.
But most people, of course, wouldn't be enwrapped in what was enraptured in the moment.
It's a good idea, though, I must say.
Yeah, and it serves the film very, especially with the poster being her mouth acts as the
great idea. The escape route. Yeah,
fits it. Because you worked with Bob Hope on that film. Do you remember Bob Hope?
Yes. Strangely enough, I don't know exactly what the reason was now, but normally, of course, the assistant to an editor never has anything to do with the actors, and I was just Peter's assistant, and although I was sound editing by that time, but I still assisted him for the first half of the shooting section, and he said, go down onto the set and show Bob this list. I can't remember what it was I had to go down for, but anyway I did. I went down there, went over to Bob Hope and showed him this piece of paper, and he then talked to his lady, and I thought, this is rather interesting. I'm amongst the film actors for a change. And of all the people, Bob Hope, that we grew up with all as kids, and I loved that. It didn't last for long, but I really, really loved it. And I noticed that from then on, every Christmas, I still got a copy I used to get, or maybe it was the first year, but I got a Christmas card from Bob Hope and whoever the lady was, and
Yeah.
it was quite something really, a bit of a novelty. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing to have, and to think that a star like that would kind of sort of,
Yes.
you know, I think it's amazing that even despite a lot of people's actors who are very successful, they're still so down to earth.
Oh, very much so.
And
I've always said that the great thing about working with famous people is you realise how normal they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was, For Much of Love did have a sort of quite, apart from the death of Pedro, it was quite a complicated post-production in that some of the scenes didn't work as originally intended in terms of the order. So Peter Hunt had to restructure sequences.
Oh, is this a known fact, is it?
Yeah, and there was also some dubbing of a few actors' lines to
Tell the story.
to then get to another scene, and some plate work where they had to get Lottie Lenya to stand in front of herself as a picture of the scenery and shoot new dialogue to kind of
Oh, this is
make
interesting.
it
You've
more-
obviously read about
yeah.
Russell in Love. Yes.
But I assume from your point of view, Peter Hunt didn't seem any more stressed or worried.
No,
You just sort of took
nothing.
it in stride, sort of thing.
No, not in any way.
And the final picture, of course, is you wouldn't know there was any sort of the
Any hiccups.
problems or
No,
anything.
you wouldn't. No.
And I think it always hits people's top three or maybe top favourite Bond film for fans. Why do you think it connects so well with audiences for Much of Love?
Well, of course, it was very early on in the Bond series, and so the very fact that Dr. No was such a success, I think most people couldn't wait to see the follow-up. And everything about that film seemed to work somehow. And it was typical Bond. I think it attracted an audience just the same way as Dr. No had. Even though it was a rather different style, wasn't it? Well, we both agreed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the girl in it was revoiced, of course. That was a typical example of how Bonds often had revoicing. They used actors that were foreign or looked right for the part, and then it was necessary that their accent was too strong.
And it was Nikki de Vandersil who revoiced.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, a lovely lady, somebody who's also like yourself, invited me into to her home, and we had a lovely conversation together. And
Oh, you did you?
yeah, she was a lovely lady, and again one of those people that not many people perhaps, because I don't think people who revoice artists kind of got much publicity. So I think some people get a bit forgotten about, but her contribution, I think, to those early films was very significant.
Yes, it in her case it did create a bit of a problem because, rightly or wrongly, she always felt that she wasn't respected enough and didn't get enough publicity. But I tried to explain to her that filmmakers don't want an audience to know that their actors have been revoiced, so they're not going to broadcast it. They're not going to put a credit up saying revoice artist. But she never quite came to terms with it, and unfortunately it did lead to one or two rather unfortunate situations, especially as she enjoyed being interviewed by a newspaper journalist, and she intimated that Shirley Eaton had been revoiced because they thought that she felt slightly Cockney, and instead of the newspaper saying that it was slightly Cockney, he said that she was revoiced because she sounded Cockney, and of course Shirley never ever got over that. It really upset her, quite rightly so.
Yeah.
And that's why seeking that publicity really wasn't such a good plan. It was best to just keep quiet, be respected, and understand why you couldn't have a credit.
Yeah. I think this was also the time when even stunt performers, nobody wanted to sort of highlight the fact that John Wayne wasn't falling off a horse, or so there was a lot of people
Of course.
that came in that thing of it was to keep the secrets, not where
Exactly.
will we
It's
celebrate them. So,
behind the scenes,
So
I agree.
A lot has changed, and even now there's no Oscars for stunt work or anything, because it stems back from this whole thing of trying to sort of keep it a bit hidden.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah,
And,
good point. Yeah.
And I know in case of revoicing with Shirley Eaton, she was not told that she was going to be revoiced by the producers. So of course, when you go and see the film, and you're not hearing your
own voice,
that can also create a bit of
Very.
ill feeling towards the filmmakers.
Sure.
So I think sometimes, the blame gets pushed to the wrong people sometimes.
Absolutely. I wish I could have remembered how she sounded originally, because I just still can't believe it was necessary to try and improve her diction. But there we are. They obviously decided it was necessary.
I'd have to look in some of her other work to see how she sounded and say the same.
Yes, good idea.
I know Eunice Gayson was revoiced in Dr. No.
Yeah.
And in one of the trailers, again on the DVD, it has her original voice, which is interesting. So you get to hear.
So you could compare.
So that's interesting, and you can see it's a bit. What Nikki did was a bit more refinement. I think she added.
Well,
I think that was even a term probably that Shirley Eaton wouldn't have worried about. It was more, refining a performance rather than necessarily.
Yes.
Just to fit perhaps what the producers wanted.
Yes, because when you're shooting, if the director was thinking subconsciously that isn't quite the way I'd hoped she would sound, you can't stop and do anything about it. You continue, you shoot the scene. The advantage is that later, if somebody's coming on to improve it, you've got all the time in the world to adjust, try this, try that, and I can well understand the way the system works, but I am just surprised that both those ladies had any need to be revoiced. I am confused there, especially with Eunice. I can't think why.
I mean, I think everybody apart from Lois Maxwell in Dr. No, every female performance is Nikki's.
Extraordinary,
every single one. So
yeah.
It's very interesting, and of course these days you wouldn't really think to revoice artists, so there's certainly something that's kind of...
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Yeah.
In fact, no.
Perhaps more, we've got more dialogue coaches and things, and perhaps that weren't so prevalent perhaps back in the 60s. They perhaps thought it was just easier just to revoice somebody, I suppose.
Yeah, but you would normally assume that when you hire an actor or actress for a particular part, it's because you know how they speak and you know how they sound.
Yes.
So why would you hire them if they didn't sound quite the way you'd hoped?
No, it's very interesting, isn't it?
I mean, Goldfinger was an exception, of course, because obviously he had slightly confused the producers by giving the impression that he could speak normal English, and in fact he was hoping he could just rehearse the lines the night before and speak them.
we'll explore that a bit further when we get onto Goldfinger. But just to finish up from Rush of Love, is there any part of the film or sound or anything else you want to add to our discussion about?
No, for some reason, I don't know why, some Bond films immediately come back to me, but I'm trying to trace the story through. Of course, the train. The train is the one scene that I remember, and I think a lot of people think the fight in the train was one of the best sound sequences in all the Bonds, in its own way. I mean, it obviously wasn't as technical as some of the sounds that needed special creation, but its contribution to the film was enormous, and I feel very pleased about that. And as you pointed out earlier, the fact that there was no music, so that one could cover the fight with the rattle of the train and the whistle through the window. It had everything going for it.
Mm.
I could sit and watch that scene many times, I think.
And the sound of the cord and the watch coming out. How I take it that would have been probably a layering of other different sounds mixed
Yes,
together
a
to
lot of
achieve
people
that.
have a lot of people have commented on that. From what I remember, um, in the sessions we have after the film is shot, when we go into a recording theatre and we have to replace lots of items, a lot of the time, if there's a prop that was used in the film, then we have that prop with us as well. And sometimes the prop, we can just reproduce exactly the sound we were hoping for. Other times it doesn't produce the sound we were hoping for, so that's when we start being creative. We try this, we try that, or even mix two together.
Mm.
But I think my memory tells me that we used the exact machine, for the exact gadget for that.
Mm.
It would make sense.
Yeah, and then you may just amplify the sound or turn something up to
Yeah.
kind of enhance it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Norman, for talking about From Russia with Love. It's a classic film, and thank you for spending
Well, it
time
was
talking
always my favourite. It was Cubby's favourite, and I'm sure if Cubby had been alive, he would have shared mine with the first Craig film.
Yes. Oh, yes. I think it's.
Come on, tell me the title.
Casino Royale.
Casino Royale.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Casino Royale to me took the series into a new era, and I sat there and thought, this is filmmaking of the very highest quality, and to me that became my favourite Bond. I think a lot of people it is their favourite Bond, but in my case it's I have my own reasons, you know.
I think there is a strong comparison to be made in terms of From Russia with Love significance to Casino Royale, in the respect that From Russia with Love cemented the Bond formula that began in Doctor No, and then much like Casino Royale, reinvented Bond for the 21st century in many ways. So
yes,
they both have quite an importance in the in the Bond world.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a low place to end on, Norman. Thank you very much for talking about From Russia with Love.
No problem.
Hi, Graham.
Hi, Philip.
Hi, you okay?
Yeah, I think so. I've just had a sneezing session. Bit of hay fever, I think. I cut the grass today.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's been warm today, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, thank you, Graham, for wanting to speak to me about From Russia with Love. It's very much appreciated. The first thing I wanted to ask is, of course, you did a little bit of work on Doctor No, probably just a few days or so. Doctor No comes out, the Bond phenomena starts to begin in terms of it's a success, but it's still simmering away, not quite hit its heights yet. Were you quite in? Did you hope that you would be able to do From Russia with Love initially?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I was so new to the industry and just finding my feet at Pinewood, um, and thoroughly enjoying it. I really, really loved the work. And I was moved around an awful lot on whatever was necessary. I was just an assistant, what we were called a boom operator's assistant, which was basically a cable monkey. There were lots of big heavy cables to move around in those days. But and as you say, I spent a brief amount of time on Doctor No, as was used to happen whenever somebody needed an extra hand on a film. Those days, an assistant would be moved over to help or whatever, or holiday relief or something like that. Anyway, the next thing that I can remember was being upgraded to a boom operator for some artist tests for From Russia with Love, which consisted of a very attractive young lady wearing nothing in the bed, nothing except a black little thing around her neck, and I was the boom operator, very green, obviously, very inexperienced. And I put my boom in over the bed where I thought it should be, as I'd been taught by my peers then. And the lighting cameraman uh, took forever to light this scene, forever and ever. And all the time there were mic shadows from my boom, which, was not going to be acceptable. But I thought, well, he must see those and he's going to do something about it, green as I was. Anyway, after a couple of hours, he said, "Okay, ready." And he pointed at me and he said, "You can take that thing out of there." So I had to wind my boom back about 6 feet. And so I had to wind my boom back about 6 feet and get whatever I could.
Hmm.
But that was my introduction to From Russia with Love. Excuse me.
So was it just like a day or two? Was because I assume you tested quite a few.
Yeah,
Shows.
that would have been a 1 day artist test. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Um,
I wonder who would have played Bond, whether it might have been Bob Simmons, his a stunt guy, or just brought somebody random in, I guess, possibly.
I'm sorry, I really can't remember who was, if
Yeah.
they were feeding any lines or whether it was just a visual look. Maybe she didn't have to say anything. I know she probably did have to say something, but I can't remember anybody feeding lines.
Hmm. 'Cause I suppose back then it might have been
Excuse me.
no worries. I suppose
Uh,
back then it might have been perhaps a little scene from Doctor No or something they might have done perhaps at that point. Because now, of course, the From Russia with Love bedroom scene is of course what every Bond is tested for, isn't it? Yeah.
yes, I guess so. As I say, I can't really remember anybody feeding lines, but perhaps they did.
So it wasn't anybody that ended up in the film, I assume, that was being tested. It was just sort of, you know,
I imagine they tested a number of young starlets,
hmm,
but was just involved with this one.
hmm. And then you were out again, off to do other things. There is a connection with the film Call Me Buana, in From Russia with Love, the poster with Elwood Broccoli and Harry Salton presents. You can see their names on the poster in the
Right.
sequence. Of course, you worked on that film. Is there any memories there?
Well, again, it was a short period of time as the sound assistant. Some of these things, bear in mind that the sound assistants didn't go on location, so we would just get put onto a film when it returned to the UK to shoot some stuff in the stages. And this happened on Call Me Buona. I was assisting Roy Charman, who became a pretty well-known production sound mixer, and I went on to actually be nominated with him in later films. But on this particular film, I remember Roy's eyesight wasn't great, and he had the boom racked out above um, Bob Hope, and you'll have to help me with the female.
Anita Ekberg.
Anita Ekberg, right. So the boom was racked right out above between the pair of them. And as I say, Roy's eyesight wasn't great. So he got off the boom to go down and see whether the mic was favored, whether it was going the right way. But as he got off, unfortunately, he hadn't locked off the boom correctly and it crashed down between them. I remember that. Not a good thing for a boom operator to do.
So were the stars good sports about it, or did it shake them up?
I think, yeah, I think they were good sports about it. I don't recall any nastiness, but I mean, it might have been different if it had hit one of them on the head.
Yes. Yes. I was just thinking of some of the sound crew on from Russia of Love. I just wondered if you had any sort of memories you'd like to share about Harry Miller.
Well, yeah, at the time, Harry Miller was one of the top sound editors or dubbing editors, as they were called quite often. He was certainly, I recall, he did all the big movies that came through to Pinewood Post.
Yeah. And quite an amenable chap, quite a sort of good to work with.
Uh, as far as I know, I didn't really have anything much to do with him because at that time I was on production,
Yeah.
production sound until
Yeah.
about 1970.
Hmm.
And thoroughly enjoying it. I loved every day going to work. In
Yeah.
fact, pretty well loved every day going to work at Pinewood because um, every film I worked on, particularly in the dubbing theatre, mixing theatre, every film I worked on, there was some rubbish, but while I was working on them, they were the best film ever, and hopefully I was
Hmm.
trying to make the best soundtrack for it.
And of course, Pinewood's the wonderful gardens they have were used in From Russia of Love and Goldfinger, and so it's for Bond fans, there's that as well, isn't there? Sort of and then of course it was up to people like Norman Wanstall to make it sound like it was an exotic island in the Caribbean and things like that. So adding the magic on later. Um,
Yes, and yeah, no, Pinewood Gardens, we used to spend a lot of time shooting there. And I remember on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang,
mhm,
the the scene where Truly walks through the garden singing and swings on a swing. The
mhm,
director, Ken Hughes, wanted it to be sort of monochrome, only green and white. So she was wearing white. Most of the garden was green, but anything that wasn't green was sprayed green.
mm, yeah. Um, there was also a couple of other people. You because I think you did do Carol and Up the Khyber, didn't you, Graham? Is that correct? Am I
In
remembering
the in
correctly?
the dubbing theatre, yeah, I was an
Um,
effects mixer on Carry On Up the Khyber.
I mentioned that just because there's a sound camera operator, Charles Arnold, who did Rush of Love, and does that name ring a bell?
Yes, I remember Charlie Arnold. He was one of the Pinewood sound camera operators who was at the time when we were going out on location. He would have come out on a good number of films that I worked on, and I'm not sure. Don't think he went to move into the post production. No, I think he left as as a production sound camera operator. Basically, the term comes from when sound was shot on optical on a sound camera. And the job of a sound camera operator at that time was to just look after whatever we were recording on. Sometimes it was 35 mm magnetic, sometimes it was quarter-inch magnetic, and we had to keep the sheets, look after the rushes and get them back to the studio for transfer, and generally help out as another member of the crew.
Hmm. Yeah. There's just two other names I wanted to mention. Derek Kavanagh. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, I remember I worked with Derek Kavanagh. You can check my if it's right. Was it on a high wind in Jamaica? Was he a
Uh,
boom on that?
I'll have a little look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, I worked with Derek when he was a boom operator, and he went off into production.
Hmm. That,
And
'cause that quite a skill, isn't it? Sort of, I mean, it seems like sort of one of the more menial jobs, but actually, it's quite a art. I would have thought doing boom correctly.
well, yeah, I mean, a lot of us used to say that a production mixer, is only as good as his or her boom operator because if their mic's not in the right place, they can't possibly record decent sound.
Hmm. Um, uh, what sort of year are we talking about? The film you mentioned, Graham.
Ah, High Wind in Jamaica.
Um,
I remember it. It was Anthony Quinn, I think. So if that helps.
I think you've got so many credits. Oh, Highwind in Jamaica. Here we are. 65 it was.
Right.
Just a mere 49 years, 59 years ago.
Yes.
Uh,
One
so
thing
yeah,
I do,
that's
one thing I do remember about it is that there were a number of children in there and in the film, and they had sort of stand-ins of short stature, and I
hmm.
did actually date one of those stand-ins.
Oh, right.
Very briefly.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Derek Kavanagh was on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with your memory. Um, and again, you wouldn't have seen the principals like Anthony Quinn and James Coburn, I take it.
Well, I would have seen them when they were acting, yeah, because I remember the set was on, I think, E stage at Pinewood, and it
Hmm.
was the ship on hydraulic rockers, and that was the set we were shooting on. So that any action that took on the deck that wasn't uh, done on location would have been picked up on
Hmm.
that set.
Yeah. Does the name John Mitchell ring a bell, a sound recordist?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
When I applied to Pinewood when I decided I wanted to go into the sound department at a film studio, I applied to Pinewood and to Beaconsfield Studios. Um, and at that time, John Mitchell was in charge of the sound at Beaconsfield Studios, although quite often loaned out for to be the production sound mixer. And the first film I worked on ever as a cable monkey was The Waltz of the Toreadors with John Mitchell.
Mhm.
And after a few days, John Mitchell said, well, I know you've applied to um, Beaconsfield as well, but I would certainly take you there, but I wouldn't poach you away if the head of sound at Pinewood thinks you have a future. So he went to ask Cyril Crowhurst, who it was then, if he thought I had a future, and Cyril said yes. So that was that. But good fortune, John was loaned out for some big pictures, and I spent a year with him on those magnificent men in their flying machines, from the first um, days of shooting right through to the green screen on the planes back in the studio. It was about 12 months.
Mhm.
And following that, another 12 months I spent with him on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which was wonderful time. Um, I met my wife, uh, my which were on a film called. There were two films in Berlin at the time, the Quiller Memorandum and Funeral in Berlin,
Mhm.
and I was on Quiller, and she had a small part in Funeral in Berlin, and our sound truck driver stroke interpreter, we didn't need interpreters in Germany because they all spoke English, but he was lodging with her mother in their home, and he fixed me up on a blind date.
Mhm.
So that was well, the rest is history.
Mhm.
Well, three children and two children and five grandchildren later. Anyway, um, so where were we? John Mitchell, yeah. So I took a day off on Chitty to get married, and Cubby let us both fly out to location. We were in Saint Tropez and in southern Germany, So I had a working honeymoon.
Hmm. And just going back to, you mentioned the in Berlin. I think you also worked on the Billion Dollar Brain, of course, Ipcress file, which I'll mention a bit later on. But there can't be many people that would have worked on all three of those films.
Well, again, that was a brief. I can remember a brief stint I spent up on the Pinewood lot,
hmm,
where there was a lot of it was a snow scene, which was probably salt in those days.
hmm,
We did some shots up there, pickup shots perhaps.
yeah. And the last name I wanted to mention, C. Le Mesurier. I don't know what the C stands for, but he did. There's only one film he did. He did things like Day of the Jackal and a few other credits, but um, not seems something that people really know too much about. So I don't know if that name rings a bell at all.
Oh yes,
Probably not.
that is Colin Le Measurer,
Oh,
who
Colin, right? His
yeah
IMDb page just had him down as C, so that's
yeah.
good.
No,
Yeah.
he was in the main theatre, main mixing theatre in theatre in at Pinewood Theatre 2, which consisted of Gordon McCollum, the chief mixer, and Colin, the second mixer, and then a third mixer. Well, I joined that crew as a third mixer, effects mixer. um, Effects mixer at some point, and eventually Colin retired, and I moved up to the next seat,
Hmm.
and then finally took over from Gordon McCollum when he retired.
Hmm.
But no, Colin we knew very well. He was a really amenable gentleman, and his son became part of my crew. Nick Lemessurier is his son, and we were in assistants at about the same time, and he moved up as well, and we were part of a team of myself, Nick, and Mike Carter for quite a few films.
Hmm. Because you worked with Nick on Superman. I think it was Aliens as well, wasn't it? And you
That's
got
true. Yeah, well, of course,
Academy nominations for those.
yes, of course. On Superman, we were the two effects mixers to Gordon McCollum on
Hmm.
Superman, and by the time of Aliens, Gordon had retired, and Nick was my right hand man.
Hmm. I know we mentioned Superman briefly before, and how you're involved with the swooshing when Superman flies. But were things like the Krypton sequences, the space stuff, and the a different creating the sound of a different world, was that sort of quite fun to do?
Well, we had such a vast array of sound editors on Superman, and I remember became quite a problem to sort out what to use for. Let's take something like a light switch. There would have been the original light switch from the floor. There would have been a sound effects light switch. There would have been a Foley light switch, and then we had somebody doing electronic stuff. So there was an electronic light switch, and we had to sort of each time put all of those up and blend some or all of them together to make what we figured was a reasonable light switch for
Hmm.
Superman film.
Hmm. So it's a long process, even for something that seems
Yes,
so
it
minor.
is. I mean, but so we had to make sure that we could put up all those particular elements together in one go to choose and manipulate them and choose
Hmm.
what combination we liked.
Mm. I must admit, there's some wonderful sounds in Superman, from the sounds of the crystals to the whole Golden Gate Bridge falling down, and the fault for crashing down and being repaired. So it's quite. Does anything stand out as being your favorite sequence to work on that one?
Um, Probably some of the helicopter stuff, because we on that film in collaboration with Dolby, we were the first 5.1 film sound track released, which meant it was the first time there was a stereo rear, left and right rear. We called it divided surround at that time.
Mm.
And we went to a lot of trouble with Dolby, and our then head of department, who was an engineer, built for us some 5-way panners so that we could pan stuff around the whole room like that, left and right surround. And so we made the best of that, and subsequently Coppola played that film in San Francisco with Dolby, and they decided to use it for the Vietnam film.
Oh, Apocalypse Now. Or
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
subsequently, they decided to use that system for Apocalypse Now, and that system stuck with us for quite a long time
Mm.
until Dolby modified it a bit more to make it 7.1, so that there was a center back as well, 3 in the front and 3 in the back, and that lasted until Atmos and all the other systems that come out now.
Mm. And just to wrap up our chat on From Russia with Love, when the film came out, I think it was seen as sort of quite a progression from Doctor No. It was more money, it was more sophistication. Is it a film that as a viewer that you quite like?
Oh yes, I mean we liked Doctor No, and it was a big success, and certainly we were all keen to see Russia with Love, the next one, and it's certainly stood up.
Mm, yes, yes, it does, doesn't it? And when you're working at a Pinewood at staff, of course, so many productions are coming in and out. But do you find yourself brushing shoulders with big directors or production designers? Like, for example, Sid Kane was the production designer for Rush of Love. Do you get to meet these people, or would you kind of sort of, is it all bit you stay to your own department sort of thing?
Well, in the first part of my career when I was on production, I certainly met, or sometimes almost all the members of the crew. Later in post-production, it was more obviously the editors and sound editors, director. Didn't see much of the art department then. I'm afraid they'd finished,
Mm,
but
yeah. So there's something quite exciting, I suppose, about being on the sets, and then because when you get to post, you're kind of, in your own bubble, I suppose, working. So is the benefits to both?
well, yeah, the benefit for me was starting off on production, which was very, very exciting for a young man, going on location and seeing all these wonderful people and seeing how it all went on. But when I went into post, of course, it shifted to you're actually making the last creative process for a film. Once we've mixed the soundtrack, and that's where absolutely everything comes together, all the dialogue, sound effects, and music. And whatever we leaves our theatre, there's nothing more to be done. It just goes to the labs. There's no more creative process. So consequently, directors sometimes get quite nervous at that stage when all they can see is things that they wish they may have done slightly differently, and very often want us to fix it, usually by playing it louder.
Well, I think it's probably a lovely place to end it. Thank you, Graham, for talking about Commercial Love. It's been really good to talk to you about it. Mm.
Okay. Thanks very much for it.
That's right. Well, take care, Graham. Lovely to see you.
All the best. Bye.
And you. Bye. Hi, Martine.
Hello, Philip. Hi.
Hi.
Let me just close the curtain because the sun's coming in.
Okay.
Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm okay, actually. How about you?
Yeah, yeah, no, not bad at all, not bad.
I must say, I had no idea what you were going to look like.
Oh, yeah.
No idea at all. Didn't even, I did nothing came up. So you're a surprise. A very
Oh,
nice surprise.
oh, that's very nice of you to say. Um, I mean, I have met you a couple of times over the years at various conventions, but of course you meet so many people that you
It's a little
can't.
difficult. I
Yes.
know. I know. I mean, it's trying to separate the faces and the name, forget the names.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Martine, for wanting to speak to me. It's very much appreciated. The first question I had was, what made you want to get into film to begin with?
I have no idea. But when I was a little girl, and the only way that I could think, I kept saying that I was going to be an actress. I have no idea where that came from because I saw no television or films in Jamaica where I was growing up. And not until I got to England when I was like almost 13, and I saw TV, which was in black and white and about 2 hours a day. I have no idea. I have no idea where that came from, but I was absolutely sure that's what I wanted to do. So I have no idea where it came from.
But because you were Miss Jamaica, weren't you?
Never,
No,
ever, ever.
no,
They always say I was Miss Jamaica. I was in the Miss Jamaica contest.
right.
However, my problem was that I was having far too much fun, so I couldn't take it really seriously. I mean, so when I was supposed to be, you know, um, there at like 9 o'clock in the morning, I was still sort of half partying. So no, no, I was never Miss Jamaica.
Yeah. But am I correct in saying that you won a prize of some kind? Was it a car? And then
I did.
you
I
did.
did.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely, I was determined because I thought I'm never going to get it. I needed to go back to London because I'd been in Jamaica. I'd been in London for 5 years. Then I went back and I didn't really want to go back, but I was too young to be left behind. So I was not terribly happy about being in Jamaica. I really wasn't because I loved London. I wanted to be back in London. So this opportunity came up and it was for a car. I didn't even think about what I would do if I won it, because I didn't drive. But I thought, I'm going for this. And I literally behaved myself and I went off to the North Coast and I got into a hotel and I rested, which I was never doing. I was too busy partying. So I rested and I tanned myself and I went to bed early and basically took myself away from all the nuts. And I came back and I won it. I mean, I was absolutely determined to win it. And what happened was that the car, which was adorable, it was a Minor, Morris Minor, but it was also a little red convertible. It was adorable. However, my mum and my uncle took a look at it and realized that it was not a new car. So they went to the company and said, I'm sorry, this is not a new car. You need to compensate her. And that is how I got my ticket back to London. And they did, they had to, because I mean, otherwise I was going to completely ruin their whole idea of her, because it was a car, company. So that's what I did.
And was your parents very supportive of the modeling side and then also going into acting?
Not particularly. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 8 anyway, so have that around. But mom was worried for me. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Whatever her name was. Um, so she kept saying that, if you want to do that, then you should go to Hickman's College and learn typing and have a backup, which is what I did. So, but there was no way that anybody was going to stop me going for what I wanted.
And you first encountered Terence Young, I think, did you go up for Doctor No originally?
I did, but I had no, I had basically I was completely green and I'd had no, I mean, the only thing I had were these little films that I'd done, these little sort of tourist films in Jamaica. And I didn't have any experience, and I hadn't even had any classes. And Terence Young kind of saw something in me. And he was my champ, he was my first champion. And he said, go and get some experience. Go on, go and get some experience. And because I have an idea. Sure enough, when Russia with Love came up, he says, you're going to be one of my gypsy girls. And that was it.
So did he contact you directly when the film came about to offer it
Oh
to you?
no, it's all through agents and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did meet him personally because my friend Chris Blackwell had worked on Doctor No, and so I met him, and we met several times, and then we became really great friends after.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So I believe you had to do quite a bit of training for the Gypsy
3 weeks,
3 weeks.
3 weeks
Yeah.
every day. Yeah.
And that was Peter Perkins was the stunt arranger. Do you remember Peter Perkins at all?
No,
No.
no. I remember. I mean, I don't know who it was. I can't remember who it was. I mean, this is like, a long
But
time ago.
60
I mean, yesterday is hard to remember, much less, 65 or 60 odd years ago.
I know the feeling, yes. So but you did you find it quite exciting though, the training process? Because it was very
Well,
much like
I love to dance.
mm,
So it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was choreography.
yeah. Because of course Pedro Amadales, who played Karen Bay, was terminally ill
Yeah.
during shooting. Did that change when you were going to do the fight scene? Were you aware of that at the time?
It changed because we were supposed to go to Turkey and suddenly we were on the back lot.
Hmm,
And and I didn't really know about it until later. I mean, I was just disappointed that I wasn't going to Turkey.
yeah. Uh, so you were sort of shooting the scene in the freezing cold back lot of Pinewood.
It was okay. It was okay, actually. I mean, I was very hardy.
Hmm.
I was young,
Yeah.
so that helped.
Oh, absolutely. Do you was it? I think it was a number of nights to sort of get all because it's
Oh
quite
God,
intricate.
yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, that's the thing about rehearsing for so long is that Terence wanted to use a handheld camera and really come in close. I mean, he had an idea of how he wanted to shoot it, and so we had to have the choreography so that he could come in. If we had to repeat anything with the handheld camera, we had all the moves. So it was important that, and it was a really good fight. It was really good.
And how did you find your fight co-star? Was she was
Well,
she
we worked well together, but she was never going to be my sister. It just wasn't one of my sisters. I have a lot of sisters.
Hmm. And do you remember the first time meeting Sean Connery on the film?
Yes, it was doing publicity photos before we even did the shoot.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting because the photographs just show immediately there was a sort of mischief connection. And there's like a twinkle between the two of us.
Hmm.
And I don't know how it happened or what happened, but it continued, on.
Yeah. The two Bond films you did the cinematographer was a guy called Ted Moore.
Yeah.
Do you remember him at
I
all?
do remember him. Yes, I do remember him. He did a fantastic job. I mean, I must say that Russia with Love is probably one of my favorites because there were some fantastic scenes. I mean, I particularly like there were a lot of great scenes, but the scene between Robert Shaw and Sean Connery was probably one of my favorite scenes because what it was, there was hardly any dialogue. It was a total or sort of like really just cat and mouse between them. And I thought that was really brilliant because I like films where you don't have to have dialogue over everything, you know? And this was like one of the first that I'd seen like that. I mean, I've seen some later on, but that was really terrific. And that was definitely Terrence, who I loved, adored.
And of course, there's no music in the scene as well. And then, of course, you get the sound of the train when the windows smash. It's very.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's really great, really great.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing the film on release? And were you, you know, it sounds like
Well,
you.
I didn't go to the premiere. I don't know why. But I did go and see it. And then, of course, the thing that I noticed immediately was the fact that it was Martine Beswick.
Yes.
And there's no way they're going to change it because it was already out. So there we go.
I mean, so Philip is spelled with one L, but of course, a lot of people spell it with two, and it's quite annoying when people kind of get it wrong. But
But
let
and you're
alone,
with one L, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
my very dear friend Philip Dewhurst is one L too.
Oh yes, yeah. But yeah, to get it wrong
Oh yes,
on credits
exactly.
must
On
be,
screen. I mean,
yeah,
really?
yeah. Um, so how did Thunderball come about? Was it again, did Terrence kind of just keep you in mind?
Terrence
Yeah.
Terrence. Always
Um,
Terrence. I mean, because I'm an island girl. I mean, I'm from Jamaica. This is what this is all about. It's an island girl. And they kept saying, well, we don't want to use, it was Harry, basically. We don't want to use, Bond girls twice. I mean, that's not just what it is. However, he said, well, don't be ridiculous. She's the best person. So he fought for me and he got me. He won and I won and we all won.
yeah. Because apart from Maud Adams, of course, who did two different
Yeah,
roles,
but I was the
you were the
first one. So
only
that,
person other than
exactly.
her. Yeah.
And there were others after. I mean, in fact, Carol actually did a couple too.
Oh yes, she did do
Yeah,
a couple.
and she's like, now she's a sister.
Hmm. Yeah, she's a nice a nice lady. I've met her a couple of times as well. In terms of Terence Young's direction, was he very much? It sounds like he's very much an actor's director, and would kind of let you sort of try things. And
Yeah, he just kind of, he said, well, he would sort of say, well, do something, darling. I mean, it's just once in a while, but otherwise he'd tell me, where he wants me to be. And it was, he basically, he hired me for who I am and allowed me to be that,
Hmm.
which was very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Am I correct that when you got the role for Thunderball, you had to go off and get a tan, and
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I had 2 weeks of tanning and eating because I hadn't seen the sun in years.
yeah, yeah.
I was gray. I wasn't even white. I was gray.
Hmm. So it's a complete opposite experience with Thunderball being predominantly on in the Bahamas. Did you get a lot of downtime? Was it quite nice to just be in the Bahamas? When the
Well,
cameras were
the
panning?
thing is that there was never a downtime because basically I wasn't working like the rest of I mean, like Sean and Claudine and Luciana. They were working all the time, especially Sean. But what happened was because I wasn't working all the time, I was doing a ton of publicity. So my job at that time, so suddenly I'm on cover of everything,
Hmm.
So that's I was doing a lot of publicity, a lot. And sometimes all three of us were able to do it. But basically, I mean, I was doing main because they were too busy. So that
Good,
was
good.
my job.
Yeah, and it's of course something you were used to doing beforehand. I get the sense that Sean Connery was never that happy with the publicity side of things. Did Sean come across as a bit shy when it came to the press?
Shy? What's that word?
Um, or,
Grumpy, maybe.
certainly private. I think he'd like to be
Yeah,
quite a private person, but
yeah.
um,
No,
I mean,
he was okay until he started to realize. I mean, Thunderball was it was a zenith of Bond. And every newspaper, radio, TV, everyone just converged in Nassau. And it was madness, absolute madness. And also it was like spring break. And so what you got, not only did you get all the press, but you've got all the fans, and it was massive, absolutely massive. And I think it kind of pissed him off a little.
Hmm.
Of course, he's working. He's doing some serious, I mean, this is like, you know, massive amount of work. So I totally understand.
And I don't think, I mean, nowadays actors know if they do a big role like Bond, what comes with it. But of course, Connery being the first, it was, you know, before the Bond craze, you kind of could have a personal life and you know, and be a successful actor. It wasn't
Well, I don't know who
necessarily.
can have a personal life when you get into that one of those kind of things. I mean, really. I mean, how can you? It's just a massive. It's
Hmm.
just amazing how they do it, really. I mean, and Sean wanted to do other things, which he did, and did them really well,
Hmm.
and never lost his Scottish accent.
Yes. And so when you did From Russia of Love, of course, Doctor No had been quite a hit, but
Oh,
it's
very big hit, yeah.
um. So were you aware of? Have you ever read the Bond books? Were you kind of
Never had no idea
no,
who Ian Fleming was.
yeah,
Not a clue. I was clueless. I was green. I had not a clue.
yeah, and
But
of
then
course,
I knew.
yeah, and of course, by the time you go into Thunderball, you have Goldfinger before, so you knew
Yeah,
this was another level really at
yeah.
that point.
Well,
Um,
it really hit big. I mean, on Thunderball, it was massive, massive.
you have a scene with Rick Van Nutter and Earl Cameron. Do you
Hmm.
remember either two gentlemen?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I loved them. They were great, particularly Earl. They were fabulous. Oh, no, they were really great. I
Yeah,
mean, I remember, I remember. I
yeah.
was kind of,
Hmm.
yeah.
And you do have a scene with Philip Locke, who plays Vargas, and Michael Brennan, who plays the other heavy.
Yes, when they're about to take me off and, and then I came.
Hmm, yeah. So, do you also meet Adelphi Celli, people like that?
I wish I could. I mean, he died, but I love. Oh, Adolfo was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. He was here he's playing this massively baddie, big baddie, and he was such a giggler. I mean, we would just really giggle a lot, and we were in Brazil together at this film festival, the first film festival. And we just giggled a whole lot. And he was sort of, Molly Peters and I went, and he was sort of you know, our guide to go to the various events. He was just, I adored him. I adored him. He was just really lovely.
I never got to meet Molly Peters. Was she
Oh,
nice?
my sister. Oh,
Yeah.
she was, and again, she's gone. And so Claudine was too, all of them. Really fantastic. Luciana, I see as much as I can. She lives in LA. If I go there, I see her. If she's here, I see her. In fact, I just saw her and I don't know if you've heard, she had a terrible accident and
I
she's
did
just been
hear she broke her
operated.
foot, but I didn't hear the
Yeah, yeah,
how or anything. But I think because there was a Bond event, wasn't there, last weekend,
yeah, yeah.
and real truth was she still went and all that. So
Of course she did.
mm,
She just can't help herself.
yeah.
She's amazing. That is it. That's another. I mean, basically everyone, the Bond girls are true. We have a bond because nobody else, no other actress really has had experiences that we've had with Bond. It's, it's just the way it is. And, and we giggle a lot and we laugh a lot. And when we meet, we just have the best time. I mean, Caroline's my number one. You know, Caroline Monroe is my number one. You know,
Mm.
but then so is Luciana, and so is Carol, and so is, you know, all sorts. Everybody had wonderful time with everybody.
And because of course you got a chance to bond particularly well with Claudine and Luciana because you were doing a lot of publicity on the film, and then of course you strengthened that in the conventions and things in the years
Yeah.
later. Do you have a few favorite memories, favorite experiences that Bond has brought you post doing the film? Sort of like you know, a convention that takes you to a exotic place or some.
Yeah, we had a reunion in Nassau 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and that was really fabulous. You know, I was just really great, and of course it was just Luciana and I because everybody else was dropped off the tree.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Luciana came with her family, and it was great. It was really, I I enjoy these, and this last one was absolutely incredible. I mean, this last Bond event, really good. I enjoyed them, and we just look at each other and go, "This is Bond is a gift that keeps on giving." We're happy to be here. We cannot believe that this is going on so long. I mean, here we are. You know, 1965 we did that film
Yeah.
together with John.
Mm.
I mean, that's a long time. We are old women now. Happy old women, but we are old women.
So you never found that you got a bit stereotyped in terms of acting going forward. You
Well,
didn't
I was
limit to.
stereotyped anyway because I was a baddie. You know, I was an exotic.
Mm.
So there's no, didn't matter whether I was Bond or not because I was also Hammer.
Mm. And did you enjoy working at Pinewood Studios after you did the Bahamas sequences? Did you like working at Pinewood?
It was good, but I mean, let's face it, working in Nassau is, you know,
Mm.
2 months in Nassau.
Yeah. I just wanted to just to finish off, just to ask you very brief about a couple of other projects that you did. Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, Roy Ward Baker directed that one. Do you remember
Mhm.
Roy Baker?
Oh God, yes. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, it's probably one of my best performances actually,
Mm.
Dr. Jekyll and Sister
Yeah.
Hyde. I mean, the first time I heard about it, I started laughing. I said, "Don't be ridiculous. You're going to turn him into her? Don't be silly." And they said, "Yes." I said, "Hang on a minute. That's actually could be quite interesting." And in fact, many years later, because I wanted to take it a little further, but Roy was under pressure from Hammer to, you know, get a bit more flesh and all of that. And he said later on with Brian Clemens and Roy and I were doing, you know, those additions to the DVD later on.
Mhm.
And he turned to me, he said, "You know, I wish we'd explored this more." I said, "Mm-hmm." So he just kind of smiled because he knew we could have done more with it.
Hmm.
Just because there were moments when we did explore that, you know, gender situation. And now it's kind of like come to, you know, they're even showing it at places and talking about the gender situation. And I said, yeah, no, I wish we could have done a bit more.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
It's a very good twist, isn't it, on that
absolutely. Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Um, you did a film with Adam West. Was that a good film or working
Actually,
with
it was
Adam?
actually a really, really fun script, a really cute script. And the people in it were, and Adam was a delight. I mean, it was, but we had two dreadful producers, and we had to kind of rise above that because they were really horrid. And they literally, they almost ruined the whole film. But, you know, I mean, I actually enjoyed doing it. And I thought, and I got nice reviews for it. So what the hell?
Hmm. And you never shied away from the sort of the glamour side of it
The nudity?
Nudity,
No, of course
etc.
she's good. Of course I'm good. I mean, we're talking about a whore. No, she's a madam. I mean, this is a top, uh, basically she was a top prostitute, and she'd written books. And I was the third one because the first one was Lynn Redgrave. The second one, that was Happy Hooker. Then there was Happy Hooker Goes to Washington, and that was Joey Heatherton. And then me. I go to Hollywood. And it was really, I'm sorry that I didn't meet her actually, because she sounds like a right royal, interesting woman, because yes, she was selling her body, but she was in charge. And that was interesting. And that is what came through in the film, and that is what I got reviewed on. They said, when she says don't do it, the Beswick is definitely there on that level.
Yeah.
So,
And you did lots of great TV
yeah,
guesting with It Takes a Thief, Heart to Heart, Robert
yeah,
Wagner.
yeah.
Do you have any favorite TV appearances in your career?
I mean, what is really nice actually in my career is that I managed to have wherever I've gone, starting with Bond really, was family. Hammer was family. Having done 2 Bonds and having done like 3, I think it was 3 films for Hammer. Well, when I started doing the stuff in America, suddenly, I was doing 2 or 3 episodes of that. They'd call me again. So I kind of had families wherever I went. And it was really great because it was, Robert Wagner. I did several of his shows, starting with It Takes a Thief and then going to Heart. But in between, there were others. And then there was, Lee Majors. And that was the bionic, the bionic, what's it called?
Bonnie
Bionic.
Man and the Fall Guy.
And then the Fall
Uh,
Guy,
yeah.
so I mean, and I did a couple of both. So it was sort of from family to family. And I really appreciate that because I'm a big one for families. I mean, I collect families. Since my families have all kind of basically gone, a lot of them. As I said, I'm old, so they dropped off the tree.
Mm. What was working on TV in some respects more interesting because you work quicker, whereas films there's a lot of hanging around. Do you have a preference?
Well, I love a good film. I particularly like films when they'd go, well, there's this film, and I said, where's it going? And a lot of actors, and we will admit that when we were up for films or when we were asked to do a film, one of the first questions, besides the script, was, where's it going? Which country are we going to see?
Mm.
So yeah,
And did you meet Harry Saltzman and Chloe Broccoli?
of course. Yeah. I mean, Harry was a rough diamond, but I loved Cubby. He was really, and I loved his wife. I didn't really hang out with them because my guy was really Terence.
Hmm.
And so we didn't really, it was sort of like a slight divide because I hung out with, particularly on on Thunderball. It was Terence and Kevin McClory, against Cubby and Harry.
Ah,
So, I mean, I did see them and we did sometimes, get together, but it was really Terence and that was those were my guys.
it must have been quite interesting the whole Kevin McClory thing because of course it's very different to how they produced the first 3 films. So you, from what you're, it's a bit of tension, I guess, from the different producers clashing a little bit, perhaps.
Well, I didn't really feel it. And I didn't know because maybe I was just kind of, I was having too good a time.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So and also I love Terence. So there was not even a question
Yeah.
of being on the other side. Um, no, that's just the way it was. And of course, Sean was also in that group.
Yeah.
So I was there. I was happy on that side.
Mm. And it sounded like Kevin Cloy was very hands-on. You know, if he was working very well with Terence Young, and it sounds like maybe the Harry and Cubby kind of stepped back a
Yeah,
little
I
bit,
mean,
perhaps.
because they had their thing going on and I didn't know anything about it, but it was pretty horrible, apparently.
Mm.
It was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So, that I don't need to know anything. It's
No.
sort of like I don't need to watch the news all the time. That's it.
Well, yes, yes. Sometimes best not to know, isn't it? Was there anything in From Russia with Love that did you want to take the scene further? Was there any bits
No,
that
no, no.
you
Absolutely not. No,
you're
no.
happy
I know I
with it?
followed. No, it was what it was. There was nothing else to do,
Mm. And
really.
and you didn't get any bruises or anything. It was quite, you know, carefully choreographed, and it was,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. And did you go to the Thunderball premiere?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
in December. Yeah. Oh yes, we all went to that.
What was that memorable?
Well, by that time, I had, done 1 million years BC and I'd fallen madly in love. So I was with my love.
Hmm.
There you go.
Because you worked on with Raquel Welch on that film, which was she did you get
Sorry.
on well? Did you get on well with Raquel Welch on that
Well,
film?
we got on well because we had a fight. We got on well. We had a fight, and I appreciated that she was in a situation where I kind of felt sorry for her because I think she was sort of like the last of the um, studio ownership, you know. And she was kind of being told what she had to do, and I think she kind of resented that. So I mean, she was doing her job, but she wasn't exactly thrilled about it all.
Mm.
So I kind of felt for her, but we weren't. I was far too in love, and also I was again. My champion was Michael Carreras, and Michael Carreras and I just hit it off immediately.
Mm.
We became best friends for years and years.
Mm. Well, when you're working with Adam West on Goes to Hollywood, was he sort of because obviously one of quite sort of comedic roles, was he quite sort of a funny guy
Yes, he's
in
got a very dry sense of humor, which I
Mm.
utterly appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. And so between the two films, From Russia with Love and Thunderball, of course you're in Thunderball more, but do you have a preference as to do you have which is your favorite?
Well, I have to say, I mean, Thunderball was, as I said, the zenith of Bond. So, I mean, I was there and it was fantastic. But I love the
Yeah.
fact that I did Russia with Love too. I mean, so I mean, it's hard to take favorites. It is hard to do favorites because each
Mm.
one has its own special feeling about it,
Yeah.
you know?
And
So,
do you
yeah.
get a lot of public recognition after From Russia with Love? And was it, of course, obviously more after Thunderball, I'm guessing.
Well, after Russia, I mean, I kind of made it my duty to go up and do some work as an actress. I mean, I started doing, went to, um, I started doing classes and I started to kind of gather myself. So by
Mm.
the time I got to Thunderball, at least I'd had a bit of experience and I'd also done a bit of telly.
Mm.
So, but then after Thunderball, then that was a whole different thing that happened because I didn't even have to audition for a couple of years. It was like, oh, we'll get that one. We'll get that her over there.
Mm.
But, yeah, what about her?
Mm.
So
Oh.
the battling Beswick, we'll have her.
Mm.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah.
so you said after you went up for Doctor No that Terence said to go and get some experience. Did
Mhm.
you get acting classes? What did you kind of do to kind
I
of
started, well, because I was a model. I mean, one of the things that were happening for models, which a lot of us were, a lot of actors at that point, um, they would send us out to sort of pretty up sets and then maybe even give you a line or two. So it started to kind of happen that way. Um, and I think I did Danger Man, and I think there was something else that I did too. And then a couple of things started to happen. So yeah, I mean, I realized, and I thought, yeah, okay, I want to do that. I mean, there was something about Terence that I've always adored, and there was a little mischief. Always had that little mischief smirk on his face, and I got him, and he got me, so that was it. Yeah.
Mm. Did you encounter Patrick McGoon on Danger Man?
Yes, he was very strange.
Yes, I was going to say because I've
He
spoken
was
to some
very,
people who've worked with him, and
he was very strange. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, he didn't like to be around too many people, and you cannot touch him. Couldn't touch him. He was really weird. It was very
yeah.
weird. And I'm used to kind of going, oh, how lovely to meet you. Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh. You know, no, 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 no.
Well, I think stereotypically you think of actors as very tactile, very sort of, and
Not with
obviously
him.
he
No,
wasn't.
no,
Yeah,
no.
no. Did you ever do any theatre work, or did that appeal to you?
I did some theater. I did a bit of theater work in Rome when I was living there, but it's not my thing. I'm a film girl.
Hmm.
I'm a movie girl, and that's what I wanted to do.
Well, I know
So,
that Patrick Troughton hated theatre, and he was, of course, a very established actor. He said he couldn't stand that all that shouting in the evenings. That's how he described theatre.
who said that? Patrick.
Patrick Troughton, yeah.
Oh,
Um, and finally, do you have a favourite project of your career, and why?
well, again, it's hard to say favorite. I mean, because there are so many favorites for different reasons. I mean, Thunderball because it was just such an enormous. I mean, 2 months in the Bahamas. It was just incredible, absolutely incredible. Um, and then of course, 1 million years BC. Wow, Ray Harryhausen. I mean, so there are all sorts of. Each one has a special feel for me. 1 million years BC was quite a really interesting film to me. I loved it. I know it's kid stuff, but it wasn't. Ray Harryhausen was a genius, absolute genius, who I adored again. And then the people involved were really important in my life too. Very important. They became champions of mine.
Hmm.
In terms of a performance, I would say probably Jekyll and Hyde is probably one of my best. And that one I won an award for, you know.
Hmm.
Mind you, it's lost somewhere. And somewhere in Paris, I got this award for Best Actress. So who knows?
I suppose people don't, because I know nowadays there's so much of collecting film memorabilia, and people will make sure they take things off sets, but it's not something that people did back in the 60s and 70s. I don't think they really thought about, oh, I'll take my costume
I
or
wish I
have.
had. I could have gotten lots of money for mine.
Hmm.
Oops. Yeah.
Did you have an input in when you were on the Bond films in terms of your look and with the costume designer?
Terrence was right there for everything.
Hmm.
And I love that about him too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And did you have a location where it was problematic to work on? The sort of the opposite of, say, the Bahamas, something that just you were quite happy to get back in the studio.
No, everything, there's always, I mean, I like being on location. Even when I did my Western, 3 months on a horse, you know, flying across the desert. I loved it. I really did. I mean, and riding, thinking that, I mean, and couldn't ride before. So I was very proud of myself. So there's always each project that I've been on has a special moment in there for me. It's everything. I mean, I can't think of anything that I would say I will never do that again.
Yeah.
There is one because I had to be a victim. And I don't like being a victim because I'm much better at murdering people. So I mean, there was one but he was a friend of mine, and it was a low budget film called Scarecrow, and I had to be, kind of sewn up and done to and murdered. And I said and Jeff Burr was the director, and I adored him. He was such a sweetie. And I said, Jeff, I don't want to be a bloody. He said, oh please, could you please? I said, oh, all right. So it was like a favor to be a victim because he didn't know what else to do. So, that's the only time. But
Hmm.
I was not a good victim.
Right.
I mean, crying, I mean, I can die, but crying is not easy for me. Laughing is much easier. Crying, very difficult.
Hmm.
So
Uh,
anyway, that's,
well, I think that's probably a lovely place to end it, unless you have any other memories of the bonds you want to
no,
mention.
that's, I think you've covered quite a lot.
So are you still open to doing acting and things? You
No,
still, no, we're retired
I
now.
did. I did do it because I did the House of the Gorgon with my darling friend who
Mm.
wrote a thing for, for his favorite Hammer people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that a few years ago,
Mm.
7 years ago, actually.
Mm.
But I mean, the only person I would really work for is, I mean, I lost the passion, Now my passion is really, I love going to the conventions. I love being,
Mm.
I like the events because there are lots of wonderful events to go to.
Yeah.
So, it's party time.
Oh yes, because of course filmmaking is quite long hours, and it's
Well,
not
I
as easy
loved
as
it.
people
I
think
mean,
it
I
is.
was completely obsessed with being an actress. I was completely obsessed. If I wasn't working and I passed the studio, I'd go, oh my God, and
Yeah.
my heart would pound. So yeah, no, I loved it. But now I could care less. And what is happening with it is massive changes. I mean, massive changes in terms of auditions and how you have to do it and the speed in which you're doing it. I mean,
Mm.
it's beyond me.
Mm.
Too old for it.
Did
Too old
you
for it.
make a conscious decision? It sounds like to stop
Yeah,
acting.
yeah, I
Was
did.
it the roles, or you just
Yeah,
felt out?
exactly. All of a
Yeah,
sudden, I'm getting, co-starring roles. I mean, I was like the star of whatever TV thing I did. I was the guest star, the
yeah.
first guest star. And I thought, no, 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 this is not working for me. I thought, and I can't bring, what am I going to bring to this? I'm just to go in there and filling a little spot. Nah, that is not what I went into this business for. So I just said, no, no more.
It wasn't challenging enough, or kind of.
Absolutely
No,
not. I mean, it was
no.
sort of like I was demoted and I wasn't having it.
So you consciously were aware of that switch and kind of sort of.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it comes, it does. And it's also age related and it's also because I'm an exotic. And that kind of puts paid to a lot of stuff. So,
I mean, when I
but
talk to. Yeah.
I am very happy um, to not do anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I
I'm
talk to
very
that,
happy.
when I talk to actors, sometimes they say when they get to a certain age where they can't play the love interest anymore, but they're too young to play the mother or the grandmother, and they kind of get a bit sort of lost in whether you're an actor or an actress. I think it can be a bit of a difficult business. I think.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, why would I go into a business where I'm going to have to go through all of this stuff again and can't start again and, and get, because one of the things that you have to be really obsessed and possessed about it because you get so much rejection. You go up for a part and there you come down and you go in several times and suddenly, the studio says no and the network says no and blah, blah, blah. And you just go to the point, you just, but you pick yourself up and you dust yourself up and boom, you're in there again. And then at a certain point you just go, but you keep doing it because you get the guest starring roles or you get a really nice, meaty little thing. And then all of a sudden, you're getting sort of rubbish, a couple of scenes somewhere, and you think, no, 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 that has nothing to do with anything. And I think, no, no, I'm out of here.
Hmm.
And I tell you, I mean, people says, but wouldn't you really love to? No, I would not. I am happy being retired.
Hmm.
I mean, and I know they say, well, you never retire. Well, yeah, I'm happy,
Hmm.
really. and my spirit loves being with child.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you want to do, isn't it? So it's
Yeah,
what feels right at the time.
exactly.
Finally, do you have a favorite memory of working with Sean Connery that we haven't mentioned?
Well, I mean, it's just that we had this little mischief between. I mean, it was really, there was a sort of like a little mischievous connection between us from the very moment we met, and it
Mm.
was always there. It was just really great, and I actually loved his I think it was first or second wife, Diane Shalento. Oh, loved her. That she was fabulous, you know. So I mean, he
Mm.
I I loved working with him. He was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And of course, his wife did a lot of good acting roles as well, didn't
Oh,
she?
she's fabulous. I
Yeah,
loved her. She was fantastic. She was on set. She was on location as well. She was
yeah.
great.
Do you think wives get a bit protective of stars, especially when they've got a big female following? Are they there kind of a little bit to keep an eye on their
No,
partner?
no, 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 no,
No.
no, not her. She was herself. She was bawdy. She was fabulous. She was straight out of Tom Jones.
Ah, yeah.
That was who she was, really.
Mm.
Bawdy and fabulous and told funny stories and took hold. I mean, I loved her. I thought she was brilliant,
Mm.
absolutely brilliant.
Well, I think that's a very lovely place to end it on. Thank you very much, Martine, for talking to me.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Well, have a good one, and I'll
Anyway,
hopefully run into you in a convention at some point in the future.
great. All right. Thanks a lot, Philip.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one.
You too.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, Peter.
Hiya. How you doing?
Not too bad. You?
Not too bad. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear you just fine? Can you hear me okay?
Nice to see you. But
Nice to see you. It's been a while. Um, well, thank you, Peter, for wanting to speak to me about From Russia
okay.
with Love. It is
From Russia with love.
very
Yeah.
much appreciated. So I just want to start off by asking, so was this the first Bond you saw in the cinema?
It was. And
Yeah.
I'll let me just give you a bit of background if you want. I
Mhm.
The previous year, Doctor No came out in October, and I'd already read the book, the novel of Doctor No, and wanted to see Doctor No at the cinema. But the day that the Saturday it was on at our local cinema, clashed with Arsenal v Wolves at Highbury. I'm also a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan. And our dad said that if it was a sunny afternoon, we'd go to the football. And if it was raining, we'd go and see the film. Well, it was a beautiful sunny day. So we went and saw Arsenal v Wolves, Arsenal 1-5-4. So didn't get to see Doctor No in 1962. But in fact, got to see it soon after seeing From Russia with Love in autumn 63. Because of the success of From Russia with Love, Doctor No was pretty widely re-released. So it was pretty easy to see. So I caught up with it the following year, just a couple of weeks after seeing From Russia with Love. So From Russia with Love was the first one I'd actually seen, yeah, for sure.
So from that moment on, you were kind of pretty much hooked, like most fans were with their first film, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, having seen From Russia with Love, and I've seen every film on initial release at the cinema since then. And I think it's like other fans with, I mean, for instance, with the Spy Who Loved Me, people who've seen The Spy Who Loved Me as their first film, a lot of them say it's still their favourite. And I think the first one you see often tends to stick as a favourite over a long period, regardless of how many others you see. So yeah, and certainly that's the case with me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think the first one I ever saw was Moonraker, but even so, that has a special place in my heart. But From Russia with Love, I think, is still one of my favorites.
Yeah,
So of course, this is where John Barry really starts to sort of course, he's involved with Doctor No, but takes over the full duties on From Russia with Love. Did you see, have you seen John Barry in concert? And
I have several times,
you
yeah.
have. What was that like?
Well, always. I mean, I've seen it. I saw him. I saw him do a concert in 1972 at the Royal Albert Hall with Miklas Rosa. Miklas Rosa did the first half, and John Barry did the second half. It was part of the Philharmonic series they did every year at that time. And that was, yeah, I mean, that was spectacular. I mean, he did a James Bond suite, and the James Bond suite that he did in 1972 was similar to the James Bond suite he did in later concerts, the ones he did in 1998 and 1999 at the Royal Albert Hall. So he never really changed his Bond suite. I think I think occasionally he put in All Time High. I think he liked All Time High as a theme, but basically it's say Moonraker never came up, Living Daylights never came up. Yeah, I think he liked those early films best. Up to Diamonds Are Forever, for sure.
I mean, there's a very different sort of sound, isn't there? Sort of once you start to get into Moonraker onwards, the feel it's sort of, you're losing the brasses and the sort of very sort of, it becomes more sort of
There's a more romantic,
romantic. That's the word I'm looking
yeah.
for. Yeah, yeah,
Whereas on those early films, there was sometimes a sort of a jazzy element in the
yes.
scores.
Hmm.
Track like Into Miami on Goldfinger, for instance.
Yes, that's a
was
good
an
cue, isn't it?
example.
So when you saw John Barry in his concerts where it was just him, how much did he get involved with the audience? Did he sort of was he kind of quite a sort of quiet person?
He did, no, he did relate with it. He did sort of introduce quite a few of the pieces, and I don't think that was easy for him. I don't think he really enjoyed performing in concert particularly. It wasn't really his thing, but no, he related to the audience and quite well, and um, he's I think he seemed more relaxed than you'd probably expect because definitely was not really his thing. I mean, I think with film scoring, it's very much an isolated position. You're working alone for much of the time, looking at footage, writing music, not relating an awful lot with other people. Though obviously I do relate with other people, but not all the time. So I don't think he really enjoyed performing, but in those concerts, yeah, I think he relaxed and enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I mean, I've been to quite a few concerts, and it does depend very much on the person as to how much interaction that they do. I remember seeing Eric Clapton, and he probably said about 20 words in the whole thing to
Yeah.
us, and the rest of the time he was just very happily picking away at his guitar, but very good, but not that kind of social reaction I think we were looking for. Um, so talking about, if we can just talk about the From Russia with Love score, um, do you have particular favorite cues from the score?
I do. I think one or two things about the score. The score is different, I think, to a number of the scores that followed. Well, certainly it's different to what Monty Norman came up with in Doctor No. In Doctor No, there's a lot of songs in it. There's a lot of source music. Whereas in Russia with Love, there is a song, but the actual background score features more prominently than it does in Doctor No. So yeah, within From Russia with Love. I mean, favorite cues. One I'd include would be James Bond with bongos, which is used as Bond flies into Istanbul on a Pan American jet and goes through the airport, and then picks up his car and goes to see Kerim Bey. with that, I think you've got probably, for me, one of the best versions of the James Bond theme. Lot of reverb, very sort of dramatic and tense. But then it sort of goes into a more jazzy sort of cue with bass and bongos, which again is very tense, different to the James Bond theme, but appropriate for driving through the streets of Istanbul towards Karen Bey's headquarters. So that's one cue I like particularly. Another cue I like is Tanya Meets Kleb, which of course is very early in the film when you see Tatiana leaving the Russian embassy with work colleagues, and she has a bit of paper, and it's got the address of Kleb's hideaway in Istanbul, and she walks through Istanbul, asks for directions, starts very romantically, quite a sort of romantic feel, sort of predicting the romance between her and Bond later in the film. But then as she gets closer to Kleb's premises, it becomes more tense. You've got this vibraphone effect, which is sort of signifies the sort of Cold War element of the film, and it changes completely until she actually enters the premises when the cue comes to an end. You want one more? I'd go 007 Takes the Lector, which of course features the 007 theme, which composed by Barry for the film, used when Karen Bey sets off the explosion at the Russian embassy, and Bond then goes in, finds Tatiana, and they escape with the Lecter decoding machine and head off through the sort of tunnels, the rat-infested tunnels towards the station, come out close to the station, and then into the station and onto the Orient Express. Very dramatic. I once heard John Barry in an interview say that the music in From Russia with Love is hero music, whereas the music in Goldfinger is villain music, and he drew that distinction between the two scores. Something like the 007 theme is very heroic, whereas something like Goldfinger is sort of, Mac the Knife villain type music. And he did say that he thought that was the difference between the two scores at the time.
Yeah, it's a very interesting distinction, isn't it? And yeah, when you sort of think about it, yeah, you can see it quite clearly, can't you? Yeah.
In Goldfinger, you've got a lot of brass. You've got brass in From Russia with Love, but I think you've got strings. You've got some, at times, a more romantic approach to the score. With Lionel Bart's From Russia with Love theme, Barry used his melody quite a bit within the score, and that was quite romantic. So it was used in those scenes between Tanya and Bond quite a bit.
I think that's the great trick about John Barry's scores and other composers on Bond is weaving the main theme into the score. Sort of having that connection with that kind of from the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, with From Russia with Love, initially they wanted Lionel Bart to compose the whole score, or Harry Saltzman did. Lionel Bart had a big hit with Oliver at that time on the stage, and Saltzman was keen on Lionel Bart doing the whole score. Well, Terence Young and Cubby Broccoli had been impressed with what Barry had done with the James Bond thing the previous year on Dr. No, and thought that Barry deserved a chance to do the score for Russia with Love. In the end, they came to a compromise. So Lionel Bart wrote the song, and Barry did the score, sometimes using the melody of the song within his things. And then it wasn't until the following year with Goldfinger, 1964, that Barry did the complete score. He wrote the song, the theme for the song and the whole score, and did that for most of them after that.
I just a little side thought. It is very interesting that I saw Don Black do. He did a little talk one afternoon at the Royal Albert Hall, just in one of the sort of the upstairs rooms, and he was talking about writing lyrics for films and how that these days he'll be out of a job because you bring somebody on a film like Adele, for instance, or Sam Smith, and they write it, to do the music. They have their own people that kind of help them, of course,
Yeah.
but the idea of a lyricist coming in, or somebody just coming in to write the music for the lyrics, has kind of disappeared really as an art
Yeah.
form.
On the recent films, that's very
Mm,
much the case.
yeah.
So I mean, um, in fact, Don Black, it was Don Black who recommended Matt Monro to sing the song
Oh,
of
right.
Finish You
Okay.
With Love.
Hmm.
So I mean, Don Black was his manager at the time, and he recommended to Barry that he uses Matt Monro on the song, and they did use him. And of course, in later years, Don Black actually did lyrics for, I think, for 3 of the films. So actually was a lyricist on the films. But yeah, it was Don Black who recommended Matt Monro to do the song.
I find it quite interesting that Barry uses the climactic music from Doctor No towards the end of in the same kind of
Yeah.
whether he was trying to sort of create like a continuity in terms of, much like he did with the 007 theme later on, but it's interesting he decided to use another composer for such a critical scene.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure why that was. I mean, the film was running behind schedule. They'd had a lot of problems on the film. They'd had the weather in Turkey, where they were going to do the speedboat scene, wasn't good, and they had to go up to Scotland. Daniela Bianchi was involved in an car accident in Scotland, which put her out for 2 weeks. There'd been a helicopter crash in Scotland. I think one of the crew lost a foot. So they were running late. So in the end, I mean, the music wasn't actually composed, was pretty late in being composed. The actual song was recorded on, I think, September the 3rd, so just a month before the premiere. The actual score was complete in the sound editing and the music editing was all completed by about, I think, September the 16th. So again, just a few weeks before the premiere, which was on 10th of October. So running very, very late, all very tight. So I mean, amazing. I mean, I don't think films today wouldn't be able to run to that tight a schedule.
Well, if you think that they used the beginning, they made one Bond film every 12 months. I mean, now it's a struggle to do them every 4, 5, 6 years. So it's kind of a different kind of process, but also desire. I think is also different as well in terms of how quickly you produce these things. Really,
I think in those early films, the advantage they had is that they had books. They had books
well,
to
yeah.
base the
Mm.
scripts on. So Doctor No, Russia with Love, Goldfinger, they all had a book. So when Richard Mayburn was doing the script, he had that to refer to. Now, no books. I mean, basically, they've just got a pile of blank paper, and have got to start from scratch. So I think it's a much more difficult process now. Much more difficult. At least in the early days, they had Fleming's, but some of to use on a Majesty's Secret Service, Russia with Love, Doctor No, that very strong novels. So it made the whole script writing process, I think, a lot easier at that time, and helped them to produce initially one film a year, whereas now, as you say, we're lucky if we get one every 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. So of course you're not just a fan of Bond music, but also John Barry in particular, aren't you? So what do you think makes him such a great composer?
Well, I think John Barry, I think, has been able to write for a range of different genre. Um, I think the only genre he hasn't really written for was horror movies. I mean, I think he would have written a very good score for a Dracula film or a Frankenstein film. Um, uh, I think, but he's able to do a huge cross section of genre. But one important thing is his music is very restrained. It's not crash bang wallop um, action music. Even when he's doing action scenes, if you look at a scene, so if you look at a track, say Dawn Raid on Fort Knox or the 007 thing from Russia with Love, there's a restraint there. There is a restraint there. There's something in reserve. He's not doing crash bang wallop as you get with some composers now. So I think that's a significant thing. I think that's very, very typical of Barry, restraint. And I think also the other thing, of course, is could write a theme. He would also always, or usually, always write a very strong theme. And that theme would often be repeated throughout the movie. So it would ingrain itself within the audience while they're watching the film. So, yeah, themes, repetition, restraint, also a single narrative. He would hit a narrative. He could hit a narrative appropriate for the film. He would struggle. He admit that sometimes he would struggle with the film to find a theme that would fit. But once he found that single theme, the whole process became a lot easier because he could then use that theme in a number of different ways for the film. Steve Woolston, who's a big Barry fan, he wrote quite a long piece on a Facebook group, John Barry Facebook group, about that, about what are the characteristics of a Barry score? And he said, restraint, a theme, textual colours, musical colours that are appropriate, music that gets into the audience's head, music that they'll remember, music that's appropriate for the film, and they'll think about that music when they think of the film. So, I mean, I think those sort of things. Of course, he won 5 Oscars during his career. Born Free, he won song and score, and then Lion in Winter, and then Out of Africa and Dances with Wolves. So he obviously had the respect of the fact that he was nominated for those 4, plus 2 others. Mary Queen of Scots, he was nominated but failed to win, and Chaplin as well, he was nominated. So the fact he had all those nominations showed he had the respect of his colleagues in the Academy in Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, I think music. He was able to write music to fit any genre, with a strong theme, music that got under the audience's skin, but music that had restraint. And in later decades, his music became more romantic, more lyrical. But in those, I mean, if you look at Barry's action music for Bond, there's always a bit of, it's not flat out. There's an element of restraint there as well, and I think that's worth remembering.
Do you happen to know why it became more lyrical in terms of his, or was that just something that a composer kind of goes through different phases? And
I'm not absolutely certain. I mean, it started around about 1980. His parents died.
okay, well maybe that would be
yeah. his father ran a chain of cinemas in York or in the north, including York. His mother was a classical pianist. I don't think she was not professionally, but she could play classical piano. And then they died. And the film he scored soon after that was Somewhere in Time. And Somewhere in Time is a highly romantic score. And some people think that the score he wrote for Somewhere in Time was very much inspired by the loss of his parents and the feelings of loss that he experienced. But not certain. He wouldn't talk about it. It's not something he spoke about very often.
Well, I'd say you're certainly along the right lines. I would say it would make sense that you would go through those that kind of change with something as such of life importance to lose your parents. I can imagine that might be would it certainly shift you as a person. So I can understand how that would shift your career as well, and perhaps in your sound. And I think also he happened to then get a lot of movies that kind of would lean into that romanticness. Obviously
Yeah,
starting with Summer in Time and Out of Africa and Moonraker as well. That demanded a very lyrical because of the space scene. So part of it, I think, was maybe what he was going through personally, but also part of the representation of what was actually coming in for him to work on.
yeah. I mean, Octopussy as well. I mean, Octopussy has a very romantic theme, all time high. Whereas those early films, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice is romantic. But On the Majesty's Secret Service, that has a dramatic main title. And of course, Diamonds Are Forever is a strong, quite a dramatic main title. But again, I emphasize again, I still think there is a lot of restraint there. There is a lot of restraints as well.
And I think one way you see that restraint is that I suppose of any good composer, they know what to score, but also just importantly what to leave unscored and just let the acting, the performance, the locations, or whatever it be, kind of come through. So some of his scores are surprisingly short for compared to the film length, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, Out of Africa's only, I think it's 40 minutes. And he lets the plot, the dialogue, the location, lets them do the speaking. I mean, in From Russia with Love, the fight between Grant and Bond on the train. Originally, that was scored, and that the music for it is on the album, but in the end, it was removed. And I think it was correct to remove it, because I don't think that scene needed music. It's got its own soundtrack: the sound of the train, the sound of the thump, the thumps during the fight, the crash bang wallop of the fight. It didn't really need extra music in order to support it. So I think that's an example where I don't know whose decision it was to leave it out, but yeah, sometimes less is more, for sure.
Well, I think perhaps Norman Wanstall, who of course I've interviewed for this project, I think maybe it would have been from that sort of side of it. Think, well, actually, we can have the sounds of the the train going along on the tracks and the wind and stuff, and maybe it sort of seems a bit more dramatic having it that way. So.
I think it is more dramatic. Yeah, I mean, I think what the music he wrote was a good cue, but I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was necessary, so I think it was the right decision to leave it out.
And on the soundtrack, does it run to time to the scene, or I never thought to compare it, but
I think it does. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't actually sat down and actually compared it, but I think it does run pretty tight to it. Yeah.
It also begs somebody to do a YouTube video with it, sort of having it on there, sort of like to sort of see what it would have been like. But
I haven't checked it. It might be there. I'll have to check. It might be there. I'm sure someone might do it sometime.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was quite interesting to see it in that context. Do you have a favourite John Barry Bond score?
My, my that's quite difficult. I think I would. A lot of people would say on a Message to the Secret Service. I would probably go with Thunderbolt
Hmm.
personally. I think no, I'd go with Goldfinger because I think Goldfinger is so definitive. That is when the Bond sound really developed. It it moved 2 or 3 steps ahead from Russia with Love, and you had with all that brass, you had the Bond sound was developed. The DNA which Barbara Broccoli used to talk about, the musical DNA, I think, was developed with Goldfinger, and I think all the Bond scores after that, all you can see how all of them have at least some aspects relating back to Goldfinger. You know, that drama, that sexy brass, all of that, and it's used, I think, you know, even in, you know, right up to the most recent films. Russia with Love had some aspects of that, but as I've said, I think it was a more romantic score. Didn't have the, you know, that all that brass work that came out in Goldfinger, because as Barry said, Goldfinger was a film about a villain, whereas Russia with Love is more heroic, more a heroic movie.
And I think because it was, probably the most realistic ones of the books, perhaps compared to, with a Magic Service as well, that the film demanded a certain approach from a music point of view, whereas Goldfinger, this is guy with a laser. He wants to take over Fort Knox. You've got the Cathedral of Gold. You've got somebody with a metal steel rimmed hat. So you can be larger than life in a film like that compared to
To
Love.
Russia with Love. And I think the thing with Russia with Love is it works as a spy story. It is a spy story.
Yes.
Um, it's not it's not an all-out action adventure movie like some of the later films became. It's very much works as a spy film. Not a lot of the features that were in later Bond films, like the villain's lair, nothing like that in From Russia with Love. No casino sequence in From Russia with Love. No vodka martinis in From Russia with Love. So a lot of those aspects of Bond that became very familiar with the later films were not in Russia with Love. Russia with Love, you know, you've got the narrative, the spy story narrative, which it focuses on, rather than these other features that came to be so important in the later movies.
We mentioned some good scenes from the film. Do you have other favourite scenes from Rush of Love that you'd like to mention?
I like the pre-credit sequence with the cat and mouse around, which was shot at Pinewood, where you've got a training session with Red Grant killing what appears to be Bond, but in fact, of course, is somebody wearing a mask. I thought that was I think that's an impressive scene. And of course, it was the first pre-credit sequence in the films. There hadn't been one in Doctor No. So, and after that, we've always had a pre-credit sequence. So I like that. I like that sequence particularly. I also in Russia with Love, I like the way they use the locations in Istanbul. The scene in San Sofia Mosque where Bond meets Tanya in San Sofia Mosque. Very atmospheric. I have been there. I mean, I have been to Istanbul, and I've been into San Sofia Mosque. And my understanding now from people who went on the trip this year to Istanbul is that unless you're Muslim, you can't stand downstairs. You have
I
on the base.
yeah.
You have to
Mm.
go up onto the balconies and look down,
I heard that as well. Yeah.
which is a shame.
Mm.
It's a shame, but I like that sequence in the film. And again, quite a dramatic score, sort of clanging bells, and almost. So yeah, dramatic. And also, I mean, in terms of locations, I mean, the station sequence. I've been to the station um, in 2008, and it looked exactly the same as it looked in the film. Amazing that almost 50 years on, just over 50, it hadn't changed at all. So you can easy to imagine that sequence when they run through the station and then get on the Orient Express.
Yeah, I think that there's a great scenes. I think the chase when they steal the lector, and of course the fight, and I suppose the helicopter chasing Bond
Yeah,
in Scotland. There's again, there's quite good. But I never knew why. Do you ever see The Protectors with Robert Vaughan, the
I
TV?
have seen it. Yeah.
Why it uses some shots from Russia of Love in the credit
Oh,
sequence.
do they? Oh, I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, there's
Check
a
that out.
couple of quick shots of the helicopter passing the flower truck. And I think it's one that way and then one that way, and it's in every episode. I always want to know why they use it, but so we're saying that From Russia of Love is quite an important film in the respect that it's sort of Goldfinger is kind of where Bond is cemented, and of course Doctor knows where it starts, but From Russia of Love is kind of where you're starting to see all the elements starting to come together, aren't you? So it's a very important middle step, isn't it? I think in the series.
Yeah. I mean, I I remember Cubby Broccoli doing an interview, and he said he thought Doctor No was a trailer for From Russia with Love. That I mean, I think Doctor No was made for $1 million, and it made 6 million. And I think Russia with Love cost $2 million and made 12 million. I think, all right, those are approximately the figures. And then From Russia with Love led really to Goldfinger, and it was with Goldfinger that you got again the Bond DNA. What was going to follow in the next 20 or so films. You mentioned earlier about the music in the speedboat sequence being by Monty Norman from Doctor No. I think the reason for that was that Barry probably left the film. He, very bit, as I said, the film was running late. Barry was very busy at that time. He had a job at Ember Records as an A&R man, so he was responsible for finding talent and finding music for them to record. He'd worked on Elizabeth Taylor in London, which was a documentary which Elizabeth Taylor did, set on London locations. He scored that in August. So he was busy, and I think he'd left the film, and I think they then decided they wanted music over that sequence, and of course decided to use again Norman's music from Doctor No, which was used in the towards the climax of Doctor No, wasn't it? So
You can understand Barry's reasoning for probably not scoring it initially, because you have a lot of dramatic things. You have the explosions of the barrels and the sound of the fire, the boats crashing each other, the screams. So you could very easily think, yes, that it works. It probably does work very well, but without the music.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily needed the music, but clearly someone somewhere made a decision that they thought it should be scored. So there you go. But Monty Norman got a bit more money.
Oh yeah. So and being a big Barry fan, do you have a favorite non-Bond score of his?
Non-Bond score. Very difficult. I like I like Dances with Wolves, which of course was the first film that he scored after being ill. He was taken ill in 1988, had a ruptured esophagus, was out for 2 years, and then came back. They wanted him to score. They wanted him to score the second Timothy Dalton film, License to Kill, but he wasn't well enough to do that. But so the first film he did when he came back was Dances with Wolves. I mean, an hour and a half of music, won an Oscar. I mean, pretty spectacular stuff. So that's one I like. Another one I like is if you go into the 60s, I like the Ipcress File. I think the Ipcress File is a a perfect film, a different sort of spy score. And I also like The Knack, which I mean the film. You could argue the film is somewhat dated now, but the music is still perfect. It fits it very well. So yeah, I mean those are three that I'd particularly choose. Yeah, Dancing with Wolves, The Knack, and Ipcress. Yeah, those are the three non-Bond.
I recently got, I think it was reduced, with other CDs I was buying, but I think was it First Love he scored, and that was, I think, not particularly sort of well-known film,
First
but I
up,
think,
well, first off, yeah, he scored it, but most of his score wasn't used in the
yeah,
film.
yeah, I think they released a CD with
And
his
then
work on it, yeah.
the score existed, and they released the album.
Because there
Again,
was a couple of films where that happened to him, unfortunately, wasn't it? Towards the end of his career, taken off. People came in and we did it. Which we would have
well,
thought, how would that happen with somebody of his,
towards the end, I mean,
ability?
Mercury Rising, some of the music he wrote for that was taken out of the film, and Carter Burwell rescored it. And playing by Heart, which is a jazz score, which uh, for reasons unknown, they took out a lot of that, and that was rescored as well. I mean, which is Christopher Young rescored parts of it. I think there's still some of Barry's score left there. I mean, I think it was becoming more difficult towards the end of his career. His style was going out of fashion.
I was going to say, was it considered to be a bit too lyrical and a bit too sort of,
Hans Zimmer was starting to come in, and people with a similar approach to Hans Zimmer. And I think the actual process of scoring was very different. Barry, I think, liked to have initial discussions and then go away and do it, and then show the production team what he'd come up with. In later years, you had a committee. You had a committee of associate producers, executive producers, faxes being sent to him, telephone calls being sent, constant monitoring. I don't think it was the way he wanted to work. So I think in the end he was pleased to get out after Enigma, which was his final score. The whole process changed. I remember Dick Clementy and Lafrene, who wrote Porridge and the Lightly Lads, they said that when they were working for the BBC, they would do a couple of episodes at the BBC, and then they would be in the bar by 9 o'clock. When they went to Hollywood and they were working on shows over there, they'd do a couple of shows and they'd be there till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, getting feedback from executive producers, the production team. So just an example of how, in all spheres of the production process, it all changed. A lot more monitoring, a lot more executive producers all wanting their say. I don't think Barry liked that. At all. Not his style of working.
no, and I think it's a common theme when I do my chats with lots of people, actors and directors or editors, whether the common theme of how the industry kind of changed, and you had sort of it became more, filmmaking by committee, and also the fact that the technology changed from analog to digital when it came to post production and all that kind of thing. The headaches that the old crowd had to kind of, some of them thought, well, I'll retire now, and others, learned the new way of doing stuff. So there certainly has been quite a lot of a change in, that people like John Barry would have seen, from those early days, up until, say, the 90s and onwards, really.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it all changed, I think, after, yeah. I think in the 90s, I think he did some good scores in the 90s. I think, he did Chaplin, he did The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone. Enigma, his final one, which was a wartime spy story, which I think is a good score. I think he was doing good work, but I just don't think he was, the powers that be, the money men, wasn't really linking up with them particularly well. So it wasn't.
Yeah, I think people can come in and out of fashion, can't they? And Hollywood's quite fickle, there's no kind of, they want you or they don't, and they don't care about your history or whatever it is. So, I think Indecent Proposal was a very good score as well.
Very good, yeah. Early 90s, 1993, beautiful score, yeah. I mean, he was still getting offers. Even at the end, he was getting offers, but he wasn't accepting them. I think he'd had enough after Enigma. He was going to work on The Incredibles, but the problem was that they wanted a Bond score. What they wanted him to do was to recreate On Her Majesty's Secret Service for The Incredibles, and it's not what he wanted to do. I don't think, he didn't feel that at that stage of his career, he just wanted to regurgitate something he'd done decades earlier. So he produced music that was much slower than they wanted. So in the end, they parted company, and Michael Giacchino did it.
Well, I think even people like Hans Zimmer have said that they kind of get offered these big superhero films one after another, and they think, well, I don't want to do any more of them. They just kind of get pigeonholed, and we just get hands to fix it, but actually he just wants to do romantic comedy or something like that. So of course we're now in an interesting time, aren't we, in terms of Amazon being involved with Bond now, and we have the writer and the director announced. Where would you like to see Bond going forward?
Well, I mean, I am a big Daniel Craig fan. I liked the 5 Daniel Craig films very much. I think that block of 5 films, I think, was a huge step forward to what had been happening. Certainly with the Pierce Brosnan movies, apart from Goldeneye, I like Goldeneye, but and certainly from the Roger Moore movies. So I like that approach. I like that more serious approach to Bond.
Yeah.
Which is what we're getting from Russia with Love, of course.
Well,
So
yeah,
if you ask me what I would like him going forward, I'd like something like that. I hope they don't go back to a more sort of jokey Bond with sort of Jaws and J.W. Pepper and all this stuff. I'm hoping for that they maintain a more serious, the more serious tone of the film that the Daniel Craig movies gave us. So if they do that, I mean, I'll be more than happy. I mean, I think a lot depends on the actor they get. I mean, I think they're taking. I mean, they clearly don't want to make a mess of their first Bond film.
No.
They don't want to blow it, and I think they've got 2 serious producers and the writer. They're putting serious people in, so hopefully they're going to come up with something pretty special. I mean, it would be a disaster for Amazon, for the Amazon brand, if they did a Bond film that was widely criticised and flopped. So I don't think they'll do that. I think they're going to go into it seriously with enough care to produce something that I think we'll enjoy and be pleased with. Hope so, anyway.
Oh yeah, I think so, and I think the people that got involved would indicate, a kind of continuation of the more serious kind of Bond films. I doubt they want to do anything particularly controversial. They're not going to, they don't want, like killing Bond off or anything like that. They want to stay clear of anything that can kind of sort of divide. Because I don't think I've ever, it's very fascinating talking to Bond fans, and you don't want to mention No Time to Die just to in a room full of Bond fans, because people will
Very
either,
controversial film.
yeah, they either love it or they hate it, don't they? But
I think I suspect they'll ignore the fact that Bond died at the end of
well, yeah, we
just
reset.
just leave it, and
Yeah.
you start a new era, new set of
Mm,
films.
yeah.
You know, I don't think it needs any explanation. How he avoided death. Just ignore all that. It happened, and you're starting a new era of Bond films.
Mm.
And I think that's the way to go forward.
Yeah, I always saw it as kind of like a standalone series of films anyway with Daniel Craig, and I wasn't upset by that decision at all. I took it as it was, but
I think the death at the end of No Time to Die. I mean, I think it's the perfect ending to the Eon era. I think I mean, at that time we didn't know that Eon were going to sell out to Amazon, but I think with the benefit of hindsight, I think it's the perfect ending to that era. I think it's a very moving. It's very sad, but now Bond can move on. With a new era, new actor. But it didn't offend. You see, I don't find that offensive at all. That ending. I thought it was the perfect ending. I thought it was the perfect ending. That people couldn't come. Some people couldn't come to terms with the fact that he actually died. That was it. But I think people were genuinely worried that there wasn't going to be any more Bond films at that point. They thought that was it. That
mm,
after 25 films were Broccoli and Wilson really up for it. And I think, to be honest, I don't think I think they were ready to get out. I think they were happy to sell out to Amazon, who they think will do a good job.
mm,
I mean, Michael Wilson was over 80, so I think he
yeah,
probably had enough. Barbara Broccoli, in her 60s, I think she was showing that she had interest in theatre, in other types of movie. So I think she was, and I think it's got time after time it becomes more difficult coming up with ideas, keeping it fresh, and they probably felt time to let somebody else have a go at all that.
and I think there's no point in being super rich unless you can do what you want to do. So,
Absolutely.
why not kind of step away, enjoy yourself doing other stuff, or just simple retirement. And I know that Rush from Russia of Love, I think, was always the benchmark they always seem to inspire to. They always say we want to kind of make another From Russia of Love, and then when the film comes out, they say we made another Thunderball. We didn't. I don't think they've ever kind of said we've got to that From Russia of Love level. So it seems to be the place to aspire to, doesn't it? Really.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think if they can make another film like From Russia with Love
Mm.
with that tone, but it's difficult. You had Fleming's novel, and somebody needs some script writer sitting down with a pile of paper. It's not easy to come up with something
No.
as good as that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how this writer. Sorry, what's his name? Can you remember? I can't remember.
Stephen Knight.
That's
Yeah.
Peaky Blinders. Yeah.
Which in itself is brilliant. So
So it's hopeful,
should
isn't it?
be.
I think it's
But,
very hopeful going forward, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get it till 2027.
So I imagine, yeah, to allow it to properly, develop, and but I think it is interesting that the producers probably, without kind of saying it, did say that From Russia of Love was the best of them all. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what they were
Well, I think that's encouraging.
saying.
If they think that, I think
Yeah.
that's encouraging. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there is, still a lot to look forward to. Bond
Mm.
wants.
Oh yeah, yeah. And lastly, have you ever met any of the Bond cast or crew from Rush of Love that might be worth mentioning? Or
I've met Martine Beswick.
oh yes, Martine. Yeah,
She was in the Bahamas on the Thunderball trip to the
yes.
Bahamas. She was there. So I met her there, yeah, and very pleasant. Oh, you've interviewed her for this. Have you interviewed her
Oh,
for this?
yeah, she'll be on this one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Apart from that, I'm just thinking, um, she's the only one. She's the only one I've met.
I went to a couple of Pinewood, some of when 007 Jeep 007 fan club were doing it back in the 90s. Went to a couple of the Pinewood Studios events. My dad took me. I was only 12, and Desmond Llewellyn was there.
All right.
And I think it was I saw him this in 96 and 98, and he always came in the Q outfit that you would see in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
So he obviously clearly loved his association with the film, and Lois Maxwell was there as
Was she
well.
really? Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, no, sir. I mean, I think they were so fortunate to have both Lois Maxwell and Desmond Llewellyn in those, for so long, right from the early film right up to
Yeah,
what I think View to a Kill. I
yeah,
think, or close to that. Yeah, fantastic characters. Added a lot to each film, even though they were only in each film briefly. Um, Desmond Llewellyn, yeah, just just so perfect, isn't he? Just absolutely fabulous.
mm.
And so sad he died in that car crash.
Yeah. I mean, well, I suppose it's a better way to go than dying in a care home or something like that.
Well, yeah, yeah,
It's at that age as well to be cut. I think he probably, although it was sad, the worst ways.
well, yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I mean, the thing is, they kept him on into his 80s, didn't they? I mean,
well, yeah, he never wanted to stop, did he? He just obviously loved doing it, and it was.
after License to Kill, I think he thought that was it, but then they invited him back for GoldenEye.
Mm,
So and then yeah, they kept him on, and you can see why. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Obviously, a civil you don't get civil servants of that age, but you're not looking at realism. You're looking at fantasy, and he was such a strong character and added so much to each movie.
yeah,
Short though his appearances usually were. Oh, yeah, just perfect, fantastic.
yeah.
So yeah, you met him.
Met him, yeah, met a couple of times. From Russia with Love wise, I did see Jan Williams at a film
Oh,
fair. She
I
she
have met
was
Jan Williams.
she
I've
she
met
was
Jan Williams at a
but
Pinewood
very
event
nice. Um,
in 2005. There was
yeah,
a Pinewood event for Unmerited Secret Service. She was there for that and did a little tour around the garden where they filmed with the ornamental bridge where they filmed the
yeah.
pre-credit sequence and where she's doing the massage on Red Grant
Oh
and
yeah,
Robert
yeah.
Shaw. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so that's two of that. Yeah.
I did an interview last week with Malcolm McDowell, and he worked with Robert Shaw on a film, so I naturally asked him what Robert Shaw was like, and he didn't sort of hold back really. I mean, he was very difficult apparently, Robert Shaw to work with. He was quite a sort of an interesting character from what I could gather in the in the short sort of the time I had speaking about him. But I think some of the very watchable actors tend to be the ones that are quite complex, probably
Yeah.
by nature. Um, but yeah, I think it's a wonderful film, isn't it? And it's got all the, you know, again, it is where we hope the next one will get
Something.
close to.
If we got some, if we got close to that, then I think most of us would be happy.
Yeah,
I think most people
absolutely.
would be happy.
Yeah,
We'll have to see.
yeah.
I think the thing with Robert Shaw is that he worked with Sean Connery again on Robin and Marion in the mid
Oh yes, of
seventies.
course,
I
yes.
think probably Connery was instrumental in getting him
Mm.
that job.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so yeah, good actor. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah,
did
yeah.
did Jaws, excellent in Jaws. did a lot of stuff. I think writer as well, wrote quite a lot of stage stuff. So, and died young. Only died in his, I think, his early 50s. So that was sad.
And you think how fit he was in that film as well.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, sort of think.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure how I'm still here, but compared to that, but you know, it's a lot of luck, I think, when it comes to get into these things, really. But well, I think that's probably a good place to end, Peter. Unless you've got any
Okay.
final thoughts you'd like to share.
No, I think I covered most of the stuff there that I wanted to say. So yeah, I mean, good that you've done this feature on Russia with us. So I look forward to listening to it when you edit it and release it.
Yeah, well, sort of, it's an interesting time to be a Bond fan and kind of see what the future holds.
For sure.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. It's been lovely to
Well, lovely chat to you, Philip. And you take care and see you again.
You too. Yeah, I'll see you at some point, Peter. Thanks so much.
Okay, take care. All the best.
Take care. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.